welcome to Based Hooligan podcast. This is the very first bonus episode. So this is going to be a conversation with my brother K-Payak. How's it going, man?
Cheers.
Our numbers are dwindling, dude. The Jason Genova fan base is we're dispersed at the moment. You know, there's no central command anymore. Genova is he's completely gone. He's become a professional coin salesman. Big Lenny is dead. R.I.P.
I like the coin salesman. That's a good one. Yeah.
So yeah, and then the Delray Misfits are no more, unfortunately. So this conversation tonight is going to be so when we first connected, you asked me if I was familiar with the band Kettle Cadaver, and honestly, I was not. I had heard the name before, seen the logo, and heard some rumblings about them. But the more you kind of filled me in on their history, and the more I looked into it, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, just what's the name of that DVD? The one where he's like
the Kettle Cadaver DVD though, so
where he's cutting himself.
Yeah, Taste of Blood. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
two.
Taste of Blood.
Yeah, the first one that came out, which probably came out about 2001, I would say. Yeah, Taste of Blood. And that was just the old. It wasn't very long. It was like 20 minutes long. They came up with that first one, and it hit you hard. Like you got hit by a train.
That's the one I looked up. That's the one I looked up, and then I was just totally like just blown away because I've never seen anything like it, like true brutality unleashed. And you know, I wouldn't say Kettle Cadaver is necessarily like a black metal band, but they definitely have that like old school black metal spirit that is really something is not really present in the scene at the moment. Like I can't think of a single band that is totally in on their, I wouldn't even call it a gimmick. It's like a full on lifestyle. And that's something that you'll kind of be, you'll get into more and more as this conversation develops. But I think what I wanted to,
it really is like Kettle Cadaver. I mean, growing up, growing up with them too, and coming from the same town of Temecula as they did, growing up as a teenager and being around them, it was almost, I could say, it was their own scene. Like it was a band, but it wasn't like it fit into a certain category. It was like its own scene. We had our own clubhouse basically for it too, and we had like certain bands that were friends or connected, but it was almost like you're in Temecula, you're into metal, or you're into this, the punk scene, and you were hanging out at his house. You were in the scene. We all kind of knew each other, and we had like our own scene, our own little club, basically. That was it. So it was different than it was more than just a band. It was like our scene, and it was, quite a few incidents over the years that took place. A lot of it's documented, but I'll come in and fill you in on a little bit more because Edwin was kind of like the mystery man, and before he, there wasn't too much of him on the internet, especially in the earlier years, in the early 2000s, and there was a lot of questions and rumors and tales. There were these tales going around, like,
like urban legends almost.
Stories, yeah, we hear stories of this stuff, and I would be in middle school, and kids would talk about these things going on. Hey, did you hear Edwin did this? Did you hear? And I sometimes we'd be like, is this stuff really real? Like, and then we'd say, holy shit, this shit is really real, like this is really going on. It's not just these folk tales going around town. This guy really is doing what people are saying there is. Some of it was maybe a little exaggerated or whatever. And there were times I would ask him some of these tales, me and Ed, we got to be friends with later in years, but you're like, oh, that's a little exaggerated, but no, most of it, there was no bullshit in this band. It really took place, and that's what the foundation of Kettle Cadaver is really built on. We can go farther than you can. We can bleed more than you can, and it was quite, it was quite a scene being able to be there and watch it all in person.
Yeah, there's that documentary that was made. It was it come out in like 2016.
Yeah. I didn't want that to come out for personal reasons, stuff like that. But yeah, that did explain more. I got into his head a little bit more. I'll touch more on that. I didn't agree with it. I didn't. Edwin was my friend, a personal friend of mine, so that. But yeah, but that will give you a show of the scene in Temecula. We're a small town. We're not like San Diego or Los Angeles, where a lot of the bigger metal scenes came in. But we had one band that came out. We had Kettle Cadaver, and that was far different, and also around the world. I mean, people like to compare like Edwin to like Gigi Allen, or
Yeah, that
I mean
was the
Gigi Allen.
comparison I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, Gigi. I mean, Edwin is similar. You could say Gigi Allen was like, Edwin was like Gigi Allen on steroids, and little of that you could say that was true. In some
Yeah,
cases.
literally.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, you could compare him to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think a good way to kind of just start this conversation is kind of run me through your history, meeting Edwin, kind of your first exposure to Kettle Cadaver, what you thought, and then kind of your journey of like, because obviously he had the what's called the mower shack. He had this property in Temecula where he was like this gathering ground for the local youth, and he would do shows, wrestling matches, DIY everything.
Yeah.
So I think
Sure.
like really hyper specific scene like scene lore, and also just kind of these help put some context behind some of these like urban legends some of these people might be familiar with, or this is their first time hearing about him. Just kind of like talk about the legend of who Edwin Borsheim, right? That was his name.
Sure. Edwin
Yeah,
Borsheim. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
yeah.
okay, so I'll take you guys back to I'm gonna say 1999, 2000, and this time I'm in like the seventh grade. I'm like 12, 13 years old. And in Temecula, we had this little mom and pop record store. It's called Spin Records. It's no longer here in Temecula, but there is still a Spin Records you can go to. Same owner in Carlsbad, California. This little beach town, nice area. But we had, so Spin Records was our local shop, and I had a group of little friends. We're all 12, 13 years old in seventh grade, and we just kind of all started getting into the punk rock scene. We kind of had this one guy that our friend. His name was Mitch, and he kind of was our little ringleader. We all looked up to him. He was the one that showed us the Misfits. He showed us the band, the Casualties, and Exploited, and he was the one that showed us all this stuff. And about maybe about seven or eight of us that we all in our group, we all followed his footsteps. We all started putting safety pins on our jackets. Like the basically the starter pack for punk rock. To start rebelling, and I'm putting blue food coloring in my hair, and I'm going to school. So we would go to after school. Sometimes we would ask we had this friend. His mom was super cool, and she would drive us to Spin Records once a week, and we'd buy CDs at the time and patches, and what, we were into the scene. And she took us to Spin Records one time, and Mitch was our friend Mitch was looking at the local band section. They had an area there, this glass container that had all the bands from local bands. You had we had a few bands that kind of made it. I don't know. Remember the band Finch was also in there. I wasn't a fan of them. They actually didn't like us either. We had some personal problems with them, but Kettle Cadaver was in there, and they had a for sale. You could buy their CD, their full length CD, which was called Halloween, as well as their EP, which was a a 2 song. It came with the song Horroromicon and Symphony of Nightmares. And Horroromicon is actually my favorite. That's my favorite Kettle Cadaver song on there. And I still have that. I still have both those CDs from back in the day. And it also came with these cool. You got like two of these big Kettle Cadaver stickers that were like stickered on both CDs, and it came with this real giant like Kettle Cadaver pin. I still remember that day hitting that. My friend purchased it, and he was showing. He opened up the sleeve. I don't know if they call it like a digipack. What do they call the sleeve? I don't know if you would know this. You collect all this stuff. What the inside sleeve of like where all the pictures are and CDs and stuff like that? Is there like a name
Yeah, I
for
guess
it?
I guess just a digipack.
Digipack. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So he was opening it up, and he was telling me, so on the front cover of the Kettle Cadaver Halloween, it says Jack Lantern, and it says Kettle Cadaver Halloween, and he's showing it to me, and he's opening it up, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I know this guy. He goes, I've been to this guy's house before. He's like, they're a band here in Temecula, Kettle Cadaver. I never heard of it. I'm like, what do they sound like? He's like, oh, they're like kind of more metal punk kind of a thing. I'm like, oh, cool. And I remember him showing me the douchebag, and then my friend tells me that he's been to his house before one night, and he did a cage fight at his house. And I'm like, you did? He's like, yeah. He goes, you can go to his house, you can fight people. He's got this cage fighting thing, and people from all over town, dude. Like construction workers show up and gangbangers show up, dude, and they fight. It's like a dog cage, like a dog kennel, and he's like, and he actually does have dogs. He's got these really mean black dogs that are there, but yeah, he uses it to fight people, and he's the champion. No one can beat him. I'm like, what? And I was crazy. And I said, and you fought someone? He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, I fought. Yeah, Mitch was only like 12 or 13 years old at the time. I think he told me he fought some kid that was like 16, and I was like, whoa, what? And so, at that time too, like cage fighting wasn't really, it wasn't really considered a sport yet. Like MMA, like considered what it is now. Everyone does it, and kids do it. Every kid knows how to do an armbar now. But back then, that was like still considered like cage fighting. MMA was considered like a blood sport back then in those years. And so, anyways, as he's showing me other pictures, he shows me this picture of Edwin basically naked, but like the picture's kind of like cut out in the bottom where his pelvis area is. You can't really see it, but he's like naked. And his body's covered in blood. His hands got blood in it, and he's sitting next to he's got this candle, like this chandelier kind of candle thing in front of him. And he's like, yeah, you see this? Look, you see he's all covered in blood? That's Edwin. He's the main guy. He's like, yeah, he's jacking off in blood. I was like, what? And that was like the first time I'd ever seen like a shock. I had seen bands, like crazy stuff like Alice Cooper growing up. I'm only a teenager now. I've seen other, you know, stuff, but I'd never seen anything like that, like in a CD. I'd seen, naked women that posted as a kid, like my dad's record albums or that, but I'd never seen a guy that far yet at that time, blood and he's jacking off. You couldn't see him doing it, but he's like explaining it to me. And I'm like, how, like what? So it always stuck with me. And, we played the CD going home, but I didn't really understand it. I was like, this isn't really punk rock. This isn't really metal. Like, what is this thing? I didn't really, but the CD started to grow on me, okay, and it did, and I ended up maybe a month later, I purchased the CD. I went back to Spin Records and I bought it, and I kind of fell in love with them and these things, the Coffin Bangers, this saying Horan McCon, and what really did it for me too is, at my parents' house, we live right next to a cemetery, and you can actually see it through my bedroom window. When you look out the window, I can see these headstones, and it just kind of did it. And sometimes, I would take, after school in high school, I would take my little CD Walkman. Back then we all had CD players, that we put our CDs in and headphones. And I'd go sit under this tree. Sometimes when it would sprinkle a little bit of rain, I'd go and listen to Dark Throne records and Kettle Cadaver records. And it just the setting and the euphoria, especially at that time when you're like 14, 15 years old, the setting, it's very magical. I know kids do it now, but it was back then you had to buy these CDs, and work for them and get your money somehow, or steal them from your record shop. And, you know, uh, so the setting at that time was very magical. And then plus, this guy, Edwin in the band Kettle Cadaver came from Temecula. They came from my town, and he lived, well, he grew up when Kettle Cadaver was in Temecula. His main area was in an area called Starlight Ridge, which is right across from where I went to high school at. And Edwin actually went to the same high school as I did, but just he graduated years earlier than I did. Um, so he lived in an area called Starlight Ridge, and it was off of Agena Street. And if you watch the documentary Dead Hands Dig Deep, they actually do go to his family's house. They don't live there anymore, but that was kind of like the birthplace of where Kettle Cadaver started, and guys like Joey and the other members of Dallas, and Joey and his brother Danny. They were twins that they played guitar and drums. It kind of the birthplace was right there. Excuse me, in Starlight Ridge. Um, so I get more into listening to Kettle Cadaver. I'm becoming more into the thing, and now that we fast forward, we get to I'm in high school now. I'm like a freshman now. I'm like 15 years old now. Kettle Cadaver was kind of hibernating at this point. Nothing too much was going on after 1999. But around 2001, I would say 2001 is when they released the DVD, A Taste of Blood, and it just they basically, I know the drummer, we'll call him Devin, that's his name. I do know him. A good guy. And Devin's really who really was the glue, I would say, that really kept the band together. He was more the professional one, and actually could know how to use computers too, sort of that. The band was kind of back in time the way they did things. Um, but 2001 came out. They released it. Devin had to sell his entire drum set and to release it. And they released that DVD on their own. My friend Marcus, he was my best friend for a long time. He actually edited the entire thing himself. They did it in his bedroom, just on like a computer and a laptop, and did it all on
And
his
didn't
own.
they have like real distribution for it? Like I heard some one of my buddies said he found it at FYE, which is crazy.
The later years they did, but really there was a couple of distributions things they were doing it, but it wasn't much. It wasn't. They had like maybe two things. This was back, that time there was everyone was still using Google. There wasn't really any social media wasn't big yet, and this was even kind of before MySpace. This was kind of a few years before MySpace. That's what kind of everything. So it was kind of on their own, and they were like small things, but they were really doing it on their own. They had a couple small. They had one Old Town Records, and I'll talk about that one too. That Edwin had his own record label, but it was really just run out of the back of where he lived at his house. It was Horror Rock Records. That is Edwin's. That is his little label, and he had a few bands on it. But but it wasn't much. It was. They used to call it Horror Cock Records. It wasn't much going on. But it was really by word of mouth, and we would sell. The DVDs were sold back then for $10. Now I'm seeing them being sold for like $500. I know they're real. It's a rare thing, and like I have a copy of it, and people are, sometimes people will talk to me, like I'll say something or someone will ask a question and about Kettle Cadaver on YouTube, and I'll answer it for them, and then people will be like, "Whoa, who are you? You know a lot about the band," and they're like, "Do you have an extra copy? I'll name your price," but um, it's kind of a rare item now, at least for the Taste of Blood DVD. So they basically scrounged up all their money together to sell it, and I at this time I lost my Halloween CD, my Kettle Cadaver Halloween CD that I bought, maybe about 3 years ago when I was in seventh grade. I'm a freshman now in high school, just started high school, and and so I didn't have the CD, but I had the actual digipack, the plastic case for it. And so on the back it says "Write to the band, write to Kettle at Horror Rock Records," and it was a PO box, and it was in Temecula at the post office here in Temecula. And so I'm like, well, I don't know if this is, this was put out and this CD was built out in 1995, 1995, 96. They probably, I doubt that they still had that PO box, like 7, 8 years later. But hey, let's give it a shot, So I did write to it. Hey, and all I was asking was for the Halloween CD because you couldn't find it anymore. And sure enough, they wrote me back. I got a letter response back like a month later, and it was actually Edwin. And I was like, oh, cool. Edwin wrote me, and he says, yeah, we for sale. Send me $5, and I'll send it to you. He goes, have you seen our DVD? And he sent me a flyer for it, and where's it? And they had it just down the street from my house was Old Town Records, and they had a copy there. And I remember I jumped on my skateboard and I skated so fast down to that Old Town Record shop, and I got it. I gave the guy $10, and as soon as I got outside, I was so excited to get it. I ripped the seal, like the film on the DVD. I ripped it off so fast that I actually peeled the actual sealing of like that holds the Taste of Blood like film paper
Yeah,
that
like the
says that
DVD container.
I ripped it off, dude. Ripped it, and I'm like, oh
That's
fuck,
so
and
sick.
it cracked the DVD, and I told it to Edwin too the first time I did. He's, oh, that's so fucking cool. That's a real fan. Like that's what I try to do. Get people like that, like really excited, and then I skated at her, and it was a DVD, and at that time we the only DVD player we had was my parents' house was a computer. Our computer had a DVD player, but it was like so virused. This was back then when like computers would be so virus and it would just completely destroy your back then. We couldn't. Our computer was so virus you couldn't even get the CD player to eject. You couldn't get the thing. We had to pay a guy, and
It
we
was
were
so corrupted that it
yeah, it
couldn't
was so
even
corrupt. Yeah,
eject.
it's
Yeah,
probably something I was looking up that caused it, but as a kid,
right.
but we couldn't get the thing to come out. The CD player out. We had to pay, a guy like $100 or whatever, and we didn't have that money back then to do it. So I had to like wait, and so then I called one of my friends like, hey, can I come over and watch? Do you have a DVD player? And he's like, yeah, you can come over. So I watched it there, and I was like, "Holy shit!" That was when I first saw it. Like this is really real. Like these what this band is doing, the mutilation, the this whole thing, and not just that, but like how also like how built, like Edwin was, dude. Edwin was, he had this muscular physique, and like, when you walked in the room, you're like, oh fuck, dude, look at this dude, and he could be a very, a violent guy as well, dude. This guy was down to throw down anytime, like you disrespect him. Very nice guy. I'll say that. Edwin was super, extremely nice, more on occasion, he's gonna be a nice guy to you. And that's also because he knows, like you got to be nice to him. He'll say please and thank you, but like once you draw that line, he's gonna grab you by the throat. I've seen him do it numerous times. So, but super nice, down to earth guy. I know a lot of people think that like,
He was
he's
some
well done, but
maniac or something. Yeah.
yeah, but super down to earth, dude. Real and
What
fun to
did you
talk to.
think of that footage the first time you saw it? Like, was it just total shock?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the first time I watched it with my friend. I remember, especially when he, that one on the Pumpkin Man one. I was like, once he got to his nutsack, I'm like, oh man. I mean, I've seen it so many times now over the years. It's just like, oh yeah, here we go. Like, but like, it's just, like, oh man, like, and that was pretty wild. There were some other ones that I saw. Now I wasn't there that night. I actually, so that Pumpkin Man thing that went on. That was Halloween. That actually was on Halloween. uh, what, 2000? I'm sorry, I believe the DVD came out in 2003. But that Pumpkin Man, yeah, 2003 is when, because I was a freshman in 2003. So Pumpkin Man, that when they filmed it was Halloween 2001. I remember I had heard that they were going to put on that show, and the bass player Ned was supposed to kill himself that night, but he didn't end up doing it. There was rumors too that Edwin was going to kill himself that night, but they
Yeah,
didn't do it.
The
But
Gigi Allen
yeah,
thing.
yeah, everyone was supposed to do it, but it didn't happen. But I remember we had heard the day after Halloween we had to go to school, and I was in eighth grade at this time. I remember my friends talking about it. They had heard like of what Edwin did. I was like, dude, he did some pretty crazy stuff, and he'd bring dead animals on stage, and it was all kinds. It was real, there was nothing fake about this. His thing was if you go on stage with fake blood and fucking fake makeup, then you don't exist in my world. He's like, I'm the real thing, and I'm gonna push it to the limit. And when this train hits, dude, someone's gonna get hit and hurt.
Oh
So
yeah.
that was his main. Um, so I know I kind of got a bird checking on that. So but anyways, yeah, when I saw it, it was I realized, okay, all this stuff is real. Um, when after, so he did send me a letter. I sent him the cash or so. He sent me the. Me and Edwin stayed in touch. We continued to write these letters back and forth, and about once every 2 weeks or so, I'd get a letter from Edwin in the mail. And I would be all pumped, man. When I'd get out of school, I used to have to walk home. It was quite a bit. I would be so excited to go home. Man, I hope Edwin. I got a letter from Edwin in the mail, and he would send me cool stuff as we got to be more acquainted with each other. And um, he started seeing that like I really did enjoy his band, and um, they started doing this German TV channel. This is kind of where Kettle Cadaver kind of started, came out of hibernation. Like they did, yeah, they did release the DVD, but Kettle Cadaver hadn't played for like maybe 3 years before they were, like they were kind of, it seemed like even the band itself, they weren't even really like jamming together or doing it. It was just like they put together, Marcus and Edwin sat down and put together this DVD, and okay, and then hey, we could try to make some money, and then the band started moving again like a snowball. Started then German, once it was released, this German TV cable channel got in contact with Edwin and said, hey, we would like to do kind of this our own kind of documentary kind of thing on you. Like, we saw it. This is crazy. We've never seen anything like this in Germany before. Like, can we come over and kind of hang out with you for a few days? He's like, yeah, yeah, sure. Come on down. So he ends up, they stayed with him for about a week or so. And I don't know what they paid him, but I don't know it was much, but I know they paid Edwin a beer and In-N-Out burgers, and so, and that was enough to do, to put a few, a music video and put a show together. But so Edwin decides he's going to build uh, this death match like wooden thing. Yeah, he builds this, and it's in one of the music videos. I forgot it was, but I actually did have the actual VHS copy of this entire interview. So he builds this crisscross barbed wire, like Holocaust style, like wrestling ring, and it was all wood too. So once you got hit on the ring, you did a body slam. The wind was coming out of you. And it was him, Edwin, and it was Edwin versus three guys, and it was Marcus, the guy that edited it, as well as his younger brother, his stepbrother, and as well as Crazy Joe. Crazy Joe is this homeless drunk guy that lived around there that was kind of friends of everyone on the scene. Um, so they had that complete bloody match. It was like kind of those ECW hardcore
Yeah,
style
death match
wrestling
type
matches.
stuff.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
light bulbs and thumbtacks and barbed wire and staple guns. It was quite a while. And Edwin hadn't done a wrestling match in quite a few years. He had done a few. He was smaller ones. I had the actual VHS tape of when he wrestled at the San Bernardino Superdome. Him and he wrestled this dude called the Mint Nomad. So that was pretty wild. But yeah, Edwin was pretty athletic too at that time. He took his wrestling pretty serious. He was
Yeah,
athletic
and
and he
he
knew
was
what he
a
was
pretty
doing.
built dude too
Yeah,
at one point.
yeah. He was very into wrestling. Was absolutely he watched wrestling all the time. The old '90s WWF, that was his go. And I actually have trained in wrestling with him before too. He had brought me over and taught me some things. He pushed for me to get into professional wrestling as well as getting into movies. Edwin had a few roles in some small extras in movies and stuff like that. And he's like, dude, you got this deep voice. Like, you're kind of a built dude. Like, you're big. You can get like a prison role, like in an extra or something, bro. Like, you really need to go out to Hollywood and try to get these roles. And he had done that. He tried. I never really pursued that, but he pushed me a few times to do it. But yeah, I trained with him a few times with this. But the wrestling, professional wrestling wasn't really my thing. I was more into actual boxing and Muay Thai. Um, so back to it. They did their wrestling match, and then they asked if they would play a show. And they hadn't played a show in probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and they went to Showcase Theater in Corona, California, and the same place where Kettle Cadaver had their first show ever, which was Halloween night on 1995. That's kind of like the day Kettle Cadaver is kind of like the special show, and that's also where the Pumpkin Man was recorded. Well, on the CD. Um, so I had sent, but now at this time too, me and Edwin are talking for about 3 or 4 months, and we're sending each other letters all the time, and we're starting to become more like a friendlier acquaintance, and I hadn't met him yet, but um, he's kind of opened up to me more about like personal things, and he sees that I'm really a fan of Kettle Cadaver, and he sends me one copy of a flyer for the show, and he tells me to send flyers all around the high school and all around town. And he's like, I'll hook you up with some Kettle Cadaver merchandise or whatever. I'm like, no problem. I got you. And so I sent him, he had sent me a bunch of old flyers and posters too. And I had them all over my wall. And I took a picture of myself in front of like my room. It was like my whole room was full of Kettle Cadaver stuff. And I sent that to him. I mailed it to him. And so the day I went to the show, um, and I remember that day. It was like a Tuesday night, and I couldn't even get a ride there. I had to beg my mom to drive me like 30 to 40 minutes to the. And she was such, oh bless her heart, she's still around. My mom's my best friend, but she waited in the parking lot for 3 or 4
Bet she had
hours. And
no idea what was going on
yeah,
in
she
there.
didn't know, and she saw a dude was in the back, and she still remembers this. Some guy wore the Cradle of Filth sweatshirt. It says Jesus is a cunt in the back, and she had to stare at that while the guy was oh bless her heart, dude. My mom, man, I had to see Kettle Cadaver. I didn't have a ride. I was too young to drive, but she took me. Bless her heart. So
That's awesome.
she wasn't happy on the way home. That's what she saw. And, but especially at a Kettle Cadaver show. But hey, I went. That was my night. And so, anyways, Edwin's. The show was about to start. Everyone's kind of like, and there is basically nobody there. Like this show was like advertised for like maybe a week, if that, because German TV just showed up. And so they didn't really, and they actually rented out Showcase Theater. They rented it, so they didn't really advertise it. They didn't really, it was a Tuesday night, in Corona, and so, which is like a 30-40 minute drive from Temecula. So you probably had maybe like 15, 20 people show up, if that, the thing, but I didn't care. But I'm hanging out waiting for the show to start, and Edwin's girlfriend, we'll call her Jay, okay, and beautiful woman, beautiful blonde haired woman, real tall. She's all done up. She's got like she's all dressed up in like this kind of like what do they call it, like a corset. I think I remember things she's wearing real tight, like vest kind of thing. And she was wearing this like old school like New York, New Jersey like cop hat, like they wear those leather cop kind of hats, like kind of tall, wearing kind of like that. And she's got a Kettle Cadaver patch on it, like kind of dressed like she's the Kettle Cadaver like cop. It looks sexy, kind of in a
Yeah.
BDSM way, but like. And she came up to me and she's like, I didn't know that was a girlfriend, but she comes up to me and she's like, hey, are you Casey? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. She's like, hey, she goes, I'm Edwin's girlfriend. And she's like, we just want to say thank you for all the support, like, she's like, you helped out Edwin. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, no, you helped him out. And she goes, he wants to talk to you. When the show's over, come up to the upstairs area. He wants to talk. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm all pumped. Like, hell yeah, I'm finally going to meet this guy. And anyways, the, the, um, the first band that came on. Now this is actually probably the most scared I had ever been going to. I've been to a lot of black metal shows. I've been to a lot of small shows. I've been there where shows have gotten raided and fucking fights are pumping up and stabbings happening. But this band that went on was probably the most scared I ever been for my life. And this band was called Gatekeeper. And this band and Edwin just met these guys. They played their first show at like Whiskey a Go Go in Hollywood, and this band was like the ultimate fucking Marilyn Manson meets Columbine trenchcoat mafia, dude. These dudes were like, these dudes were like the kids that get picked on in school, and we want fucking revenge, and we're gonna shoot everybody. That was like kind of like this is the style. Like
What kind
I
of
was like,
music was it?
this was like they were like I mean metal and stuff like that. They kind of evolved. They kind of were in this more like Marilyn Manson style kind of like metal, and then it evolved. They didn't really put out much. They had just started, and then they were from Los Angeles, and then just the singer stayed in, and then he actually got together with his actual death metal musicians that were pretty talented, and they started touring more, and it became like an actual real like death metal band, and they played with the Meat Shits and like all kinds of other
Oh,
bands
cool.
on festivals in LA. Yeah, yeah, and I remember you and Rune were talking about the Meat Shits the other day. I see that. I love that band. It was this fucking
Oh yeah.
sniper at the you know.
Yep.
But, sorry, dude, I'm getting off that. All right, so anyways, well, this band Gatekeeper, they opened up for Kettle Cadaver, and they had just met him, and Edwin was all about like because Edwin kind of has like a Columbine kind of style like song like, and it's called Blood. It's on the last song they do. That's kind of like what that's about, like getting picked on and getting fucking back at people that pick on you, um, and just like I was never glorified that scene or anything like that. I just saw it and stuff like that, but I never really looked up to people that shoot people at schools or innocent people. It's like I don't glorify that anymore. I don't want anyone to think that like I'm pushing that. That's because I'm not. But anyways, this band like that was kind of like the style that they were. They brought all this like broken glass. I remember they brought, as the song starting, they bring all this like trash like grocery bags like full of like broken beer bottles and liquor bottles and shit like that, like all broken up. And then they lay it all over the stage, okay? And they put it on a towel, and then they sing it, and they just drop down on their knees, like right on their no knee pads or anything, bro. Just smashing this glass going straight into their kneecaps, bro. And I'm like,
This
oh
is that
fuck.
band
Yeah,
Gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper. Yeah, it was
Interesting.
like, oh, fuck. It was like, I was like, dude, that like, it was like sending like my nerves. I was feeling my nerves like watching these guys like, like crawl through glass like in their kneecaps, and then the guy starts jumping, jumping up on his knees into the glass. Like, God damn, dude, like so.
Now,
I was
was this something that they had like was a part of their gimmick, or were they doing it specifically because they were playing with Kettle Cadaver? Do you know?
I think no, it was they were very similar to Kettle Cadaver, and they were
Okay.
yeah, yeah. This was their second show, so I didn't know what they did too much, but no, they were all about cutting
Like
themselves,
self
and
mutilation and all
they
that.
were those kids, yeah, the Marilyn Manson kids you would see with fucking scars and like that kind of scene. They were all about it, like, and so I was like, fuck, and they had like like razor. They had these like gloves with like razor blades or these like spikes on the top, and they were just rubbing it through their body, like they were cutting themselves up. They had a knife and
See,
they were.
like that's the type of stuff you do not see that anymore. Like that
Yeah.
spirit is totally gone. I
Yeah,
can't think
yeah,
of
no,
it.
it was fucking wild. And then they pulled out a
Yeah.
Bible. They pulled out a Bible, and they fucking this they put lit it up, and these flames were tall. And I was kind of like nerd because that band, Great White, just like they
The
blew up
giant
the
fire.
club. Yeah, yeah, that happened in like 2 weeks. So I'm like, oh shit. Like God, and the flames were big too. They had a big Bible, and so I was like, it was just a lot like going on. And then like towards the end of the thing, they pull out fucking guns, bro. They pull out like a 45. Like both of them did. They had two. Okay, they had two singers too. They had two singers. It was a lot of people on stage. They pulled out, and these didn't look like toy guns. These were like stainless steel, big ass fucking 45, like
Yeah.
1911. And the other dude had a fucking like looked like a 9 millimeter, and they're fucking pointing it like sideways, pointing it at people. I'm like, dude, I don't even fuck. Am I gonna get fucking shot right now? Like these guys look like they're gonna fucking shoot people
Now,
right now. Like I was like, I kind of backed away. Like what the,
did, did, were, did anyone from the venue were they aware of the type of show they were booking? Do you
I,
know?
I mean, they had to know about Kettle Cadaver because the Kettle Cadaver's been playing there for many years. That's probably the most like venue that they've ever played at was like our hometown. A lot of bands have played at that thing. Dissection has played there.
Oh
Kettle
wow.
Cadaver played there with Mayhem. They played there with Mayhem one time. They played with Christian Death one time, which is a bizarre, like weird thing with Roz Williams. Like I heard something that he was like he had like some dude like chained with like a choker, and he was like whipping him like while he was singing. It was just a bunch of feedback and weird noises like on the thing. It wasn't even really they didn't even really play Christian Death songs. It was more like
Yeah, it
he
was
was
just
like
kind of like an art project
bizarre
show
whipping,
thing.
whipping
Yeah.
some fucking Mr. Slave guy while he was with feedback, and he was saying poetry. Like it was a weird it was a
Yeah.
weird thing. Yeah, but
That
I
sounds
did
about right.
yeah, but I did hear when they played for when Kettle Cover played with Mayhem. I believe Maniac was singing. I guess Edwin was doing shit backstage, and this
Yeah,
was
that
at
must have been
Sophie
during
Theater.
Grand Declaration of War era.
Maybe
I'm
it was. Yeah, I
guessing.
think Maniac and Ed. I don't know what Edwin. I wasn't around. I wasn't there, but Edwin was doing something that fucking scared Maniac, where he wanted to like puke or something like that. That was where the rumor that even whatever Ed was doing backstage was it scared on. Might have been when he brought the Coyotes on stage or some shit like that. But yeah, but I'm not exactly sure. Don't quote me on that. But
Yeah, he
the
would bring
rumor
like
is
roadkill on stage, right?
yeah, yeah. Edwin would drive around in a truck and he would pick up fucking dead animals around on his. Yeah, he would show me like sometimes I'd be hanging out at Edwin's house, like it would just me and him. He would show me like buckets. He would call them the chum buckets, and it would just be like full of like carcasses and fucking guts of animals. He would just like keep around his house, and like he would bury animals around the house. He had this weird thing he did it, but he was actually really like um friendly with animals. He was against animal cruelty, but I guess when the animal
Yeah,
died,
he
it was
wasn't
like,
killing them. He was just picking
yeah,
them up off
yeah,
the
it was
side of the road.
interesting. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was interesting. I was never, I didn't, I was like, all right, dude, whatever. But like, I was into that, but that was something he did. But he loved animals. He loved animals. He had two dogs that were really. So back to the thing. So yeah, this band Gator was pointing fucking guns around. I'm like, these guys are gonna fucking shoot like 12 people that are in the audience, and I'm
Yeah,
not one
that's
of them.
insane.
I remember like that was the most I ever didn't feel safe at a show. I kind of backed up. I didn't leave, but I just kind of backed up. I'm like, well, maybe I can hide behind this post or
Yeah, if they
behind where
just
they sell
start like
tickets. Instead,
unloading
they
into the
busted it.
crowd.
It's like I literally was like, I gotta have an exit, but a way to get out of here because this guy. And I actually became friends with the guy. Like, his name's Jacob, the singer, and I actually told him I was like, she's like, yeah, dude, you're not the first one. Everyone actually thought that we were gonna shoot. And he's like, the person of the owner of the thing said, I actually thought you guys were gonna shoot, like, and so, but I don't know if they did anything. He went to another band, and he's doing good. Jacob's healthy, and I'm proud of him. I still talk to one of their close friends of the band. But I'm actually more close, still talk to that band than the other band, actually, because surprisingly, they've changed too. So then, yeah, Kettle Cadaver came on shortly later, and Edwin comes up in this fucking, like, BDSM fucking, like, like, bondage vest thing, and, I'm like, fuck, here he is, like, shaking everyone's hand. And he had this persona, too, when I first saw him, like he was Glenn Danzig, like he really loved Danzig. That's one of his favorite bands was Danzig. And he has he knows Danzig himself too, or did. They had a connection with each other. But that was like when I saw him come on, like when you see him real life, and he's almost about, I'll give it to him too, he's about the same height as Danzig too, or maybe a
Yeah, I was
little
gonna
bit
say
taller.
like how
Yeah,
how tall is he?
he wasn't as tall as I thought he was gonna be when I saw him.
Yeah.
So he's like a little bit taller than Danzig. I'll give him that, So and he would Ed would make fun of, he would call himself short. He would say, it wasn't like I'm talking shit on him, because Ed would say like, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
short
yeah, for
guy,
sure. It's
So
just interesting.
because
Yeah, Danzig is the king, is the short king
yeah,
king.
that's what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, yeah. And Ed originally Edwin really wanted his persona to be like him, and a lot of like how he made his music videos were similar to Danzig style music videos, and
Hmm.
even Edwin's tattoos in his beginning years of tattoos, it was designed. He wanted to make it look like similar to like Glenn Danzig's tattoos. However, this originally when Ed started, it was just he had just kind of similar to like where it says like Glenn Danzig's arm, it says wolf's blood, and then it has like the skeletons holding like the Danzig ram skull and stuff like that. That was he made that similar to Edwin's Kettle Cadaver tattoo, and he had like an arm half sleeve kind of thing. But he was very inspired by Glenn Danzig, and I was too. I was a huge. I would say maybe like looking up to it, looking back at it as a teenager, Edwin was like my.
This isn't Danzig, but
Oh yeah,
I was just listening
I
to this.
saw that. Yeah, I know you've been playing that record lately. I saw you post that. But yeah, I guess you could say Edwin was like my Tim U version of Glenn Danzig. I had my own like
Yeah, 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 for
or
sure.
now we call it food stamps version of it. I don't know, like, there wasn't much food going around the later years. So that's later he'd laugh at that too. He used to crack jokes on that, like, but there's definitely poverty going on and stuff like that too. But so after after Kettle Cadaver plays, I finally the show's over, and uh, I go upstairs to where he is. They had like kind of like the backstage area. It was actually an upstairs area at the showcase, and I went up there, and Ed. Okay, so now Ed did take a staple gun to himself. I forgot to mention that night. He had the crown of thorns. This is like barbed wire crown of thorns thing. He put that on him. He just went to town, just staple gunning like. I don't know. He probably went to the whole staple gun, just staple gun his chest and stomach, and pulled real hard on the thing, and just blood was just all down there. And
Did
he
he
had
ever
just
attack the crowd?
he would punch people in the face a few times, like
But he would never like staple gun the crowd, right?
I've never seen him. I've seen it where someone like will stick their arm out and tell him, yeah, staple gun my arm or something like that. But he did it
But
to
never
himself for
like
the most part.
yeah, never
No, I
unwillingly.
never seen him. I never seen him do anything like that. Yeah, I never saw. I'm trying to think of an incident where someone did something crazy. Where someone
Cause
purposely went on stage, and so that I know Gatekeeper had that name I talked about. They had someone go up and slice their arms really hard on stage one time, and it got so bad they had to go to the hospital, like they were gonna die and stuff like that. But not like that. I know like had gone out and fought people during the concerts at times and beat people up, and he would get in there and mosh. But as far as like taking razor blades, no, he kept it to himself, stuff like that. Yeah, it wasn't much that he would attack people. But if he fucking said anything, something stupid, he would jump. He'd jump
yeah,
off, yeah. You'd fight, or maybe you'd have to fight someone, fucking basically a naked man, like, because most of the time it was his uniform, or he'd wear his Road Warrior suit, like, fucking with his chaps and shit. Sitting down in the corner, like the show was over, and all the people from German TV were also there. They were filming him, like as he's sitting down, like they were trying to they filmed the show. That which really was the reason why they did this was for German TV to have this show and send it
yeah.
back to Germany. And so they're around him backstage filming him, and Ed just like I remember like Edwin kind of had this his haircut was around this time that was kind of like this tomahawk style, like is like a mohawk, but like he did for a long time. He had like long blonde hair, he was Norwegian, but he also like the earlier 2000s, like 99 then onward, he had this like it'd be like this tomahawk like Native American style haircut that was like real long though, and he dyed it black. On both sides of his head, you'd have the death box. The death box is it's a square with a skeleton inside of it, and that was their logo. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit. How that was
Was it a
created.
tattoo?
Yeah, he had tattooed it on each side of the sides of his head. So when
Okay.
the tomahawk, you could see it on each, the mohawk, you could kind of see it on each side. The death box, that was his logo. Um, so he's there, and he's just drenched, and Ed's just not even phased by this. He's just letting them, just bleeding like it's another day, um, and he had just, and when I saw him, I could kind of tell like he felt a little off. Well, obviously he just messed him up, but like, and I realized like, oh shit, like this dude just did a wrestling match like 3 days ago and lost a bunch of blood, and he's probably like his equilibrium's probably off, like he just seemed tired, from drinking and losing blood, and now he's lost more blood and he's drinking. And so um, I just was like, this guy's, not only is he just doing it, but this guy does this like all the time. Like he's continuously, every time he goes out and does a show, like this is a lot of blood, like, health wise, he don't care, and so once that kind of, it was like a pause where there was no one really talking to him. I sat down next to him and I'm like, what's up, Edwin? I'm Casey. And he just kind of like snapped out. He's like, oh, Casey, what's up, man? Like, oh, dude, fucking so pumped you're here. He was like pumped. I'm like, hey, good, man, awesome show. He's like, dude, he's like, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, what's up, dude? He's like, you saved my life. I'm like, what? Like, it was kind of weird. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, dude. Like, he's like, I almost ended my life last month, and you talked me out of it. I'm like, what do you? I didn't even. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, it was just you sent me this letter, and I really liked what you said, and he's like, dude, I was really gonna end it, but you actually gave me, you didn't. I didn't because I saw your letter. I'm like, all right, man. He's like, dude, I just want to tell you, man, like, think that really meant a lot to me, and I was like, all right, dude, it means a lot to me too, and so. He's like, I'm gonna send you a package with some cool stuff, He's like keep writing me letters, all right? Like let's keep doing it. So I was like, yeah, sure. And so we did, and I I started getting into a band too, and we played with this little black metal band we have with my friends in school. One of them uh, played in Suicide Silence also, and we had another guy from Card Effects. Another one played in a band. Another fuck, I forgot the name of it too, but there was like three guys that are like in the scene still that are really good musicians I played with, and so I played bass around this time, and I wasn't very good. I mean, I could play like Dark Throne stuff, I could play like typical classic black metal stuff, but I couldn't do all that Children of Bodom style fucking Dimmu Borgir fast
Yeah.
like symphonic shit, and that's what this band was. They were a complete Children of Bodom ripoff kind of thing, but anyways, I gotta plug myself in here. So I played with them for a while, and they uh, they got a show um, to play at um, Edwin's house, the Mower Shack, and so I was all pumped. I'm like, oh, cool, but I ended up not being in the band anymore. But I did go and watch them play. It just wasn't my style. I wasn't into all that symphonic, and it wasn't for me. And also part of it was like uh, like Edwin hated that style too, and I didn't want
Anything
Edwin to think.
was he like totally anti keyboards in black metal?
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, he did. He obviously had played keyboard, and there's a lot of keyboards in Kettle Cadaver, but all that symphonic shit. Now, Edwin's actually is a keyboard player also, and he plays all kinds of music,
Okay.
but he does the keyboards are in Kettle Cadaver, are him playing it, but it's a different kind of scene. But I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Exactly.
I don't mind some keyboard. I know you and Rune spoke about this. Like, I don't mind a little bit, but when it sounds like a fucking leprechaun doing a Celtic jig and the fucking symphonic kind of thing, I gotta draw the line.
No, to
But
me, the best kind of keyboards are the ones that kind of sound like Mortal Kombat
yeah,
MIDIs. Where it's like it's almost like the basic like Casio.
yeah,
There's no special programming. It's like you
yeah,
buy a $50 Casio and that's it. Those are the
yeah,
best types of synths in black metal, in my
yeah.
opinion.
I like some where it's just like they play like maybe just like the background of the chords, like it's just like a little bit of a filler in the back. That's cool. But when they're
Mhm.
going like they're
Yeah, where
going
it's like a
all
full on
over, so
orchestra.
that's what
Like
that was. I mean,
that's nonsense.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they were very talented. I mean, they were very good musicians for our age and stuff like that. Like, we put out a CD, and they were very talented. But it wasn't. I was more into like, sitting under a tree at the cemetery listening to fucking Under a Funeral Moon. I was more into like, this is what I'm into, and drinking a beer and daydreaming of fucking, blowing my brains out or something like that, under a tree as a
Yeah.
teenager.
I wasn't into this whole fucking, I don't know, but I was that was in. But anyways, they
I want you
went
to kind of
to,
talk about his. You mentioned it, the mower shack. So a part
yeah.
of
So
the
that's what I was gonna get at. Yeah. So they ended
yeah.
up getting a show. They saw Edwin at a I think they saw him at a tattoo shop. I'm not sure exactly where or like in their show, but they he says, "Hey, I'm gonna have a mower shack party. Why don't you guys play?" And so Edwin thought that I was still in the band also because he knew I was playing with him, but so I wasn't. But anyways, he's like, "Yeah, you guys come out and play." Um, so that was my first. So they told me, this band that I was in with, they're like, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna go. Like, come with us." And they drove. We were still friends though; they were my friends. But we drive up there, and this is the first time I'm going to Edwin's house. And I'm 15 years old, and I heard all kinds of stuff about hanging out in these parties at Edwin's house, and it was what's called the Mower Shack. And so the Mower Shack is basically it's like this little club that he ran, if you want to call it a club, and it's behind his house, like the trailer that he lived in, and it's this two a two room. It's not big at all, and it's just a wooden it's a wooden shack, and then he made it into his two-story. There's a room you can go up, but it's really there's like a club room where it has even like a Denny's style like booth, and then like a an area behind this little wall that has where you keep all the kegs at, and you would have all this ice house beer, and then the other room would be where the stage area where all the bands would play. Sometimes you get like 4 to 5 bands play. We had a super cool band called the Muds that would play all the time. Uh, I've seen Sadistic Intent play there one time. Like I've seen all kinds of cool black metal bands, and it was fun. And you would pay $5 at the gate. And this was also interesting too. Edwin had like this like assistant that lived just a couple doors down from him, and really it was like a trailer park. It wasn't like a trailer park, but it was like everyone that lived there. And this area that I'm talking about where he lived was not Temecula. Edwin moved to this area. It's called Meadowbrook. It's in between Lake Elsinore and Paris. It's a shitty towns are kind of it's kind of a rough area when you go around here, but it's like more of a like kind of like an urban area and a suburban area, kind of just like in canyons and hills and kind of a desert like.
Yeah,
And
from what I've seen, it's just like a bunch of dirt patches.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, just a bunch of brush, and it's a lot of trailers and people probably up to no good that live there. And it's he was able to afford that area. Edwin's dad committed suicide when he was like 6 or 7 years old in Norway, and supposedly how I was told was Edwin was went into his dad's bedroom. His dad was sitting on his bed, and Edwin's dad had a his name was Porter Lawrence. He was a guitar player also, and he blew his brain. He shot himself, and Edwin was actually like staring, like they both had eye contact. They both looked at each other, and he just ended his life. And Edwin was right there watching it. So that someone that I know that knows Edwin very well, close, told me that story, but I never really spoke to Edwin about it and how it affected him. But I know his dad's death did have a big effect on him. He had a burden, and Edwin did have a childhood wise and so that Edwin wanted to give up at a young age, and Edwin has talked to me about this too, and teachers that he's met. But Edwin moved to Temecula, United States, when he was about 14 years old. So he kind of had it rough, and he could speak English, but he did have an accent. Him coming from Norway, and it was a big change for him. And his mom having a new, stepdad and sort of that. But they moved to Temecula here. But anyway, so back to the Morshak. Edwin had a like this assistant, and his name was Matt, but we all called him Hazmat. Okay, and he lived just a few doors down, and he was like the road crew guy. He helped everyone, the band set up, and he was also the driver. And he was this old school convict, that did time in an old Folsom prison, and he had this wild, like, real big back tattoo with all these like headstones on it that were years of like I think he did about 15 to 20 years in prison. It was a lot. I remember there was a lot of there, and he was an old school Peckerwood inmate and was into shooting into methamphetamines and stuff like that. So but he handled all the stuff when it came to parking in there, and anyone that needed to get checked or removed, or he collected all the money. You paid him $5. You saw hazmat was at the gate, and that's who you would give him in, and he would let you in.
He was like the
And
security.
he was basically the security handler, and he was Edwin's kind of right hand man where anything needed to be done or built. He also helped build death match, the wooden wrestling ring. Hazmat was there, so he was there through a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And he always wore this big trench. He had this big trench coat he wore, and it had a big Kettle Cadaver death box on it too, on the back of the logo, and it said Kettle Cadaver on the lower bottom of it. It was kind of cool. You always recognized him when he was there, and when Kettle Cadaver's here, you would see him and see that trench coat. Um, so then we're there. I show up, and I start hanging out with Ed, and it was the parties were fun, man. It was like Edwin's house was kind of like we had our own scene when he would throw these Morshack parties. I would really say if I could compare it to something, it was almost like you see in the movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, back in the '90s, the first one where they go to Shredder's compound and there's all these runaway kids there, and there's a half pipe there. Kids are skateboarding, playing video games. That was exactly what it was like, almost in a sense. There, we had a half pipe behind the mower shack. We had a arcade thing that had the actual old school like arcade from the '80s or '90s, but they had WWF WrestleMania thing on it.
That's
Uh,
so sick.
we had an area if you wanted to spend the night upstairs, you could bring a sleeping bag and you drank too much, and a lot of kids would go to Edwin's house and didn't have anywhere to go, and you had a place. He would more likely he would let you, if he was cool, if he would let you stay at his house and figure out your life there. More times it probably didn't work out for the best, but he I was never one of them. I mean, I would hang out at Edwin's house, but I was never like a squatting at his house. I wasn't into that punk rock thing, but Edwin really liked that movie Suburbia. It's that punk
Yeah,
rock
yeah,
movie where
yeah.
all the
The
punkers.
Penelope Spheres movie.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
real into that. It's one of the movies that he had me watch
Decline
that
of Western
also.
civilization.
Yeah, he was into that. And he had people living in there in the mower shack. But what was cool about it, and he explained this to me too later on, like not when I'm a teenager. I'm where I'm at right now. Sorry if I'm going back and forth, but
No,
he
not at
put
all.
he put he put these kids like on a program where he'd have them get up in the morning and he would have them all exercise in the morning. They'd lift weights all. He would have them take vitamins. That was the thing too. He was real big into taking multivitamins. He'd make them all do that. They were supposed to eat, eat properly. They all had to do yard work. They had to pick the weeds and stuff like that. And then they all had to learn an instrument. They all had you could pick any instrument you wanted to, but you had to play an instrument. You had to practice every day. We all practiced together. It could be any instrument you want, but you had to learn the songs Edwin wanted everyone to play, and they would all play together. Um, and so there was actual structure. You couldn't just fuck off, and you weren't allowed to do drugs, like it's a sense like that too. This is when he was not about what times later after Kettle Cadaver and that band the Hex led to, and so that was later
Yeah.
time. But during this
Sounds like he was
time,
living kind of this like militant punk
it
lifestyle.
was he was, and that's why I looked up to him a lot too. He was very built. He was had this muscular shaped body and stuff like that. He was very sharp, when I would talk to him and stuff. And he drank, he drank beers. I mean, he partied, but when he was, just regular sober, just a regular day, he was sharp. He was on it. He had a beautiful girlfriend. Like we looked up to him. A lot of us did. Like he was the varsity football star, like our town and stuff like that. Like or us misfit style kids that like were into this punk rock scene or metal scene, sort of that. We looked up to him. He didn't have much money and stuff like that, but he inherited. So I don't think I touched on this, but sorry, I'm going back. When his dad passed away, Edwin received an inheritance from it, and he had just enough money from the inheritance to purchase that property that he lived on in Meadowbrook, in between Paris and Lake Elsinore. So he had just enough to buy it, and he received a trailer, like living, a mobile home kind of thing that he lived in. That was his base, regular style living in, and then he built the mower shack, which is our clubhouse, and then behind that was the black house. The black house was the haunted house, that kind of thing that he built, and he built that all by his hands too. He built that with the wood. Him and some of the band members helped him with it, but yeah, he bought all that wood and all the
Was
tools
that
from
the
the.
one where he's going through in the DVD where it has all the weapons and like the
Yeah,
torture
that's it.
dungeon? Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the house that the door too has these nails through it and sort of that. Yeah, and he's got these secret rooms in there
He had that, yeah,
too.
that little room where in the
Yeah.
2016 documentary he said he was in there for like secluded for like a week or something
Yeah,
with like
I'll talk
no.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll tell you about that thing too. I don't know if I think that was something that I told you about, but I'll talk to you about that because I don't think that was in there yet. But I'll talk to you about that. That
Yeah.
was a pretty sad time. That was fast forward a few years, but yeah, that was the Black House area. You know, that was I've hung out there with him many times, gotten tattooed in there. He's and then yeah, he's got a ton of collectible stuff as well as toys. He has a toy collection in there. He's real into Skeletor. He's real into Masters of the Universe. He would collect these rare kind of like unique style like Skeletor action figures and such. He was
Was he
real
into like
into
the Todd McFarlane stuff at the time?
um I don't remember. I think he did have one. I think he had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre Todd McFarlane style one, but I don't think he was really as far as comic books goes and Todd McFarlane. I don't think he was like that much of a fan of like Spawn and those things like that. He was more into like 80s style Master of the Universe.
Yeah,
He
the
was
old
real
school.
and yeah,
Yeah.
that and wrestlers. He collected WWF wrestling action figures. Um and he had a lot. And you guys, oh hell yeah! Oh, Road Warriors, yeah. So
Yeah.
Road Warriors was also one of his bigger. That was one of his favorites too. He had me. This is fast forward a little bit years. This was like 2010 when me and Edwin probably like our friend relationship like became at its strongest, and he had me take home to borrow his Road Warriors DVD, the Legion of Doom Road Warriors, the wrestlers. But that was also a big impact on him. He had them. Um, but yeah, he collected that kind of stuff and just any kind of weapons and stuff would be up there. It was quite a lot of things. People would pay him money to torture. They pay him money to like a fee to go over there and you would torture him or do whatever BDSM shit. I was never around for that anything like that. You know, like I was into the music side of Kettle Cadaver. Later, me and him we got into which I'll talk on. We became like weightlifting partner. He was my training partner. We'd lift weights in there and the Mower Shack and the Black House. But like the weird shit, like he kind of knew. I was more into like, especially later, like into just the alpha male shit, like into just fucking lifting weights and being militant, and you know, I wasn't into the weird kind of shit. Like he kind of knew what I was into and
Yeah, it
what
seems
not
like
to
there was
do. I mean,
multiple sides to him, you
yeah,
know.
that's exactly what it was, and so. So I know I'm going down like kind of going off topic. So I'm trying to do it by year because as I tell it by year, I can kind of talk about like you know and then the downfall. So yeah, so the motor shacks were always fun, and it seemed like at that early time after the DVD was released, he started picking up again. Like more things were, he kind of was getting more involved, and because really he would just get by. Now his girlfriend at that time was Jay. She did have a regular job, and you know, and she was not into the metal scene really. She was just a beautiful woman, and Edwin was happy to have her. She liked Edwin. This was a completely different lifestyle. She lived at his place, but she was not into all this stuff. Like she put up with it and she would have fun, whatever. She'd be at the motor shack, but like she was pushing Edwin to like, hey, you know, like we're getting older now. We're about to turn 30 years old, and you know, I need you to get a job. Like I understand you're making a couple $100 doing these like motor shack things, but like, you know, I kind of want to settle down. You know, like I want kids. I want to do things. You know, like we can't you know, either you start really making money with Kettle Cadaver or get a job, dude. You know, so the other thing too was when it came to Kettle Cadaver, Edwin was so true. He had a lot of opportunities of going on tours and playing with certain bigger bands, but you know, there was also a time where he got asked to play with the Misfits with you know Michael Graves or whatever, but he turned it down. He's like, no, I'll never play. You know, he only Danzig. You know, like he would. If he felt
So I'm
like he was
guessing he
going
was not a famous Monsters fan.
no, fuck no, dude. No. But he would only if he felt like it was going to interrupt his reputation of being like not true or old school, or it would infect Kettle Cadaver by being some you know mainstream playing with mainstream bands and stuff like that. He would fuck no and pull the plug and tell people to
I
fuck
cannot
themselves.
picture. So if you think about the structure of like, for example, a Misfits tour in like the late '90s was they were signed to like a major record label. Like that would have been
Yeah,
a very professional structure tour. I can't
yeah,
imagine a band like Kettle Cadaver conforming to
yeah.
a road schedule, like what would have been demanded of them to keep up with that, you know?
Yeah, so I think it was just like a show or something they were gonna play in LA or whatever it was. But he told me like, oh fuck no, they told me to play the Misfits, and they offered me money. They offered me like $1,500. He's like, yeah, I need $1,500. I don't even fucking have a microwave right now, and my fucking washing machine broke. And and I went to LA yesterday and I spent $100 on fucking spikes. But so fucking what? Like I'm not gonna be fucking true. He's like,
And
I'm
he
gonna
would make
fucking
all of his stage gear, right?
yeah, yeah, he'd make all that. Yeah, he was very crafty with his hands as well as all the equipment he had and props he had, like the Hangman's Gallow Tower and even the mower shack in the Black House. He built all that with his hands. He was very crafty, excuse me, with his hands and tools, and he knew about electricity, and he would make all kinds of crazy instruments, and he could also tattoo. He did all the
Yeah.
artwork. It wasn't the greatest artwork, but he did everything. He made the flyers, everything. He was the
Yeah,
one man
true
show.
DIY, yeah.
He was the one man show guy running the whole thing, and
And that's the only way a band like that can exist. It has to have like a visionary behind it that can basically sustain the band by doing everything.
yeah, he was really back in time. Also, he didn't know how to use a computer until we'll talk about her later. But Eva O, which was his wife, she taught him how to use a computer. But I was like one of the first persons he sent an email to, like as a test run, like, hey, did you get this email? Like this is my first time sending an email. He sent it to me, and and it was like 2011 or 2010 or 2011. Like
Oh
he
wow.
sent his first email. He didn't know how to. I remember he called me one time and he was like, JC, it was like fucking 2011 or 12. He's like, hey, dude, he's like, I'm waking up right now, dude. I'm so pumped right now. You got to see what's on the internet. I'm like, what is it, dude? He called me. He's like, go on YouTube. There's this website called YouTube, which obviously I know what YouTube is. I go on YouTube and type in black metal on YouTube. I'm like, what? He's like, there's so many cool videos. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like it was like you didn't know that all this existed. He never had a newspaper delivered to his house. He would stay at home for a long time, not knowing what's going on in the world. He didn't watch the
So he was
news.
just a man out of
He was
time,
just a
basically.
man at a time, living his dream, I guess if you want to call it dreams in Meadowbrook. He didn't like when 9/11 happened, when they bombed the Twin Towers. He didn't know that happened until like a month later. Like he didn't know. Like he
Based.
isn't. Yeah, yeah. He just he
That's
didn't
how,
know.
dude. I
He
talk about like I want to be that out of the loop, and at
Yeah,
certain points,
yeah.
you know.
He didn't know, like, yeah, he didn't know when these big things happened. He'd be at his house just doing his projects or whatever in his thing. And people would come over, but he would just do his thing, and he didn't have a newspaper. He didn't have internet. He had a telephone. He didn't have a cell phone, but he was like a home phone, the thing. So, okay. So anyways, moving on. So like,
Yeah, so go kind of into, so you've seen them play a gig. You've started to ingratiate yourself with that whole scene at his compound, essentially.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of talk about like the you've formed a friendship with him. So what happens
Yeah.
next?
So
What happens to the
so
band? They do that Road Warrior video, which is
okay,
classic.
so
That
so
shit's so
so yeah,
sick.
so I'm like 15. Okay, so then I'm there. I'm always there with my fucking long hair. I'm fully into black metal, learning it. I get involved. I read this is funny too. The Lords of Chaos book. I remember we had like a little friendship, not with Edwin, but the friends I had, and they played in the deathcore bands later. Those guys. Um, they we all passed that book around. One of us had it. We all read it. We were all, and at that time too, in 2003, I felt like people would still kind of ask you back then when you go to shows, like, what side are you on? Are you on Euronymous side, or are you on the Count side? And like I remember being asked that because I would wear Burzum shirts and I'd be like, dude, I'm not on anybody's side, and that shit happened 10 years ago. That's way over there, bro. I'm just fan. I like both of them. I was just that. I remember having to explain that to me, thinking like, what are we gonna fight? But Edwin had told me like about guys getting beat up at his house about wearing a Burzum shirt and such like that. And a guy there would be like certain black metal bands that would come over and they would, if you wore a Burzum shirt, you would you know, that could cause a fight and you could get stomped and whatever, like whatever. But like I did wear burrs on his house, but I knew like this could cause a problem. Maybe someone might show up. But he was a little bit more, I guess Euronymous was more praised at his house. I remember he had a this poster of Euronymous. It was one where Euronymous is standing and he's kind of looking upward, and he's got the crucifix he's holding kind of like on an angle, like holding it. It's a kind of a famous one, not the one with the sword, but the one he's kind of holding an upside down crucifix. It's kind of big, and I remember guys there. He would these black metal guys would come over, like you know, their bands, like these and they would I remember a lot of them would fucking like cut themselves and they would and like you know bleed on top of it and they would take cocaine and rub it in their wounds and do lines off of the poster mixed with blood and they would take you know take the blood and like make like a upside down crucifix on it. Just crazy shit, you know. They really praised this shit, you know. Like I wasn't too involved now. I would be there. I watched it, like, yeah, this is fucking cool, you know, like the teenager. But these were guys like in their 30s, you know, my age, you know, like almost 40 years old doing this shit. They're just worshiping the ground or worshiping Euronymous spirit. You know, they really looked up to that guy. But so that so um, I'm Ed starts. You know, I come around. So I remember I told Edwin how old I was. I had just turned 16, and he asked me how I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm good. I just had my 16th birthday last week. And he's like, what? He's like, you're what? You're how old? And I'm like, I'm six. I just turned 16. And he was like, bro, I thought you were fucking 30 years old. And I'm like, what? I was like, nah, dude, he's like, are you fucking with me? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm 16. I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything, dude. I know I drink here. He's like, no, I know you're not a snitch. I know that, but he's like, I thought you were like 30 years old. I thought you were, you know, I'm like, no, dude, I'm 16 years old. Because, you know, I was really tall. I was 6'3" and I had a
Yeah.
real deep voice at that age and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, wow, you know, and he's like, oh, okay, well, hey, fuck it, man. Like, you know, happy birthday, dude. And like, and so other people there too thought I was older. And, you know, I remember this one night I was there when I told him that they had one of the guys there was from the band Soul Evil. Sorry, I know I want to kind of talk about this thing and then we'll talk more about the friendship as well as that. But I know I'm
Yeah.
bird
Yeah.
walking a lot, but this is kind of this part here is kind of where I realized like hanging out here you can get fucking hurt or go to fucking jail. Like this was serious, you know, like these weren't just guys in a band. Like this shit's getting fucking crazy. Um, I was there and there was one of the guys there from the band Soul Evil, and Soul Evil was a band here in Temecula, and they you know, they were these dudes walk the walk and talk the walk. They were a black metal band, and just about a year prior to this time, this was 2003 now, 2004. The main guy there, we'll call him Lord Mortar, and this is in the documentary Dead Ends Are Deep. He ends up shooting this like Christian rehabilitation center for and one of the guys that was in his band that decided to leave, get out of satanic, you know, this whole satanic thing that he was involved in, and the band Soul Evil, one of his band members, and he's gonna go over there and do basically a drive-by shooting on it, and you know, and try to murk this fool, you know, and so, um, Ray or Lord Mortar, call him, okay, whatever his name's Ray, was in prison, and I used to write Ray. I used to write letters to Ray in prison and show that, you know, like everyone was glorifying this guy. He was the main fucking satanic guy. Like we got a fucking, you know, they were magazines they made. Like this was like they started making this like SoCal black metal fucking like crew. Like they're like
Yeah.
they were like we're getting validated here and shit like that. And we're just as fucking bad, if not badder, than the dudes in Norway that did this whole black circle shit. Like we fucking do that shit too. And there was like a circle of bands in like Temecula and Los Angeles that were like kind of walking the walk and doing this kind of like, you know, SoCal black metal thug shit, you know?
Yeah.
And so um I'm there and I meet one of the guys from Soul Evil, you know, like let's say. And so, anyways, I won't mention his name, but we're there and this dude's fucking like he's got a shaved head, you know, he doesn't have long hair, but this dude was I just immediately his presence, I'm like, dude, this dude's not a guy I want to fuck with. Like this guy, well, he was like 23 years old, but you know, I was 16, but I'm like, and he was also a Marine. He had just did like he got honorably discharged. He got hurt and his back got fucked up. So but I could tell this guy knows how to kill people. This guy was a Marine infantry guy, and this guy's super into fucking black metal and partying. Like this is gonna be a wild night. So I'm doing keg stands with this guy and Edwin. We're just raising hell. We start fucking shit up. We start breaking shit in the motor shack, like breaking fucking cardboard boxes and just raising hell and fucking throwing magazines. And we had a bunch of like, I remember Keeper magazine had just came out, and it was just like this metal magazine and then CD distributor also. And Edwin's girlfriend had posed in it. She even like posed nude in it with a cop hat, and it was kind of cool. Like and then he had her posing in it again. Another episode, another issue where like, but she was all in like black metal, like corpse paint, and like had her nipples pierced. But he didn't want her to know it was the same person. And she had this whole like Kettle Cadaver pentagram flag she was behind, and talked about all the satanic imagery she wanted to do. But it was him saying it. But it was just cool. It was in the magazine. They
That's
had it.
awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. And so we had all those, and we were throwing them around. It was fun. We're just drunk. And so my ride up there, so I was 16. I didn't have a driver's license yet, but I had this friend who was who did drive, but the dude was kind of a nut. And I asked him if he would take me there and hang out with me for a few hours up at it because I wanted to go to the motor shack. I didn't care. I wanted to, I would wait. I look forward to it all days in school. When Friday or Saturday night came, dude, I was going to Edwin's house, whether I had to walk there, which was a long walk. Some people had done it, but it was a 30-minute ride from Temecula to his house. So I he took me, but I thought he was going to stay with me. I get out of his car, doesn't say anything to me, and just drives off. I'm like, well, fuck. I guess. Well, I guess I'm gonna. It doesn't say a word. Just fucking gets up and drives away. I don't know if you fucking whatever happened, but whatever. I guess fucking mental health or some shit. But anyway, so I go in. I'm just hanging out. I'm like, I'll figure out a ride back home. There's always people here from Temecula, and but I don't know anyone there really besides Ed. And so I meet that dude from Soul Evil, and long story short, we get fucking drunk, and I'm kind of like, hey, he said he'll take me home, but he's been drinking all night, and we drive down, and there's another guy too with us that plays in the band Pernicious. They're both, and this black metal side project that Edwin was also involved in, and they put out a CD, called Pernicious, and anyways. Um, I'm in the car with him, and which I shouldn't have been, but I didn't care. And this dude is trying to pick a fight. I'm in this Oldsmobile. It's like 3 in the morning now. We're leaving the motor shack. We've been drinking all night. It was a bad, and I'll never forget this day. And he's trying to fight everyone. He like flipping people off, trying to run people off the road. I'm
Oh
scared
my
now.
god.
He's big. He's got big set of arms, and I'm just a skinny little fucking fuck, as a 16 years old. And he looks inside his rearview mirror, and he just boom and just punches the rearview mirror, just shattered his glass, right? And I'm like, oh god. And so we were supposed to meet some other friends at Denny's at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we pull up to the Denny's, and this is kind of like when like the movie Fast and the Furious came out, or one of them did, and so there was all these like rice burner kind of like Japanese style like fast cars, like Nissans or Honda Civics, all lowered and so like that, and there was a bunch of like Mexican dudes there with their girlfriends and their car club or whatever it was, like there, and there was probably like 7 or 8 of them. And with their girlfriends, they were totally not doing anything, but they're just hanging out with their cars in front of their cars at the Denny's at 3 in the morning. He runs out of it, holding the horn down, flips them all off, and I'm like, oh fuck, dude, and like, dude, I don't know, here we go. And he's like, you ready to fucking throw down with these fools? And I'm like, nah, dude, like, not really. And he's like, well, I got 2 steel baseball bats in the back of my foot. Let's fuck these dudes up. And I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. And so,
So he
anyways,
was basically just looking for a fight.
oh, fuck yeah. And sure enough, he did. He pulled that. He wasn't lying. He popped that drunk dude, baseball bat, fucking runs up, hits one of the fucking, some random car, hits their side mirror. And he runs out, let's go, you fucking beaner motherfucker. And goes out there and just starts laying it on him with his baseball bat, bro. Like it's on. Like he's fighting like 8 fucking guys with a baseball bat. I'm sitting on the side of his truck of his car, and I'm just like, I got like the door open, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, is this really going on? And he's just beating the shit out of everybody. And I'm like, and so his friend shows out, his bandmate, and I'm like, and I'm sitting in the car like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm like, he's telling me, go down there and tell him to stop. I'm like, you want me to tell him to stop? Like, I don't know, dude. I don't even know this guy. I just met him. He's like, no, dude, go over there. I'm like, dude, I don't, I think it's a little done now. He's like, and so he runs down there, but he can't get him to stop. He is full on tunnel vision, just smacking everybody with a baseball bat, dude. And then, he runs back, and I jump in, and he tells me to get in his car. The other guy's down there, and then the cops immediately showed up and they arrested him. I'm like, fuck. So then he drove me home. The other friend, he takes me home. And so that night, I was
Yeah, yeah, you're good. Yeah.
okay. I think we're good now. Okay, because so I went home that night. I'm like, dude, these guys like black metal, and this crew that I'm hanging out. These guys are actually real. Like, this is not black metal is not fun. I understand, like, nowadays it does seem like that, but well, I mean, this was, over 20 years ago, but these guys are serious. Like, these guys will go to fucking jail
Yeah.
and do shit. And there's one of their guys is already in there, almost got life, for this shit. Like, if I keep hanging out and with this crew, like, some shit is gonna happen, and I can get blamed for it. So I was kind of like, this was almost like I looked at these guys like these guys are almost like a fucking gang, and these guys and they are absolutely like, this isn't just a band. Like, these guys are really about it. And there was also, the band like Nocturne was also
Yeah.
part of that kind of whole scene. Um, so when so when and I'll talk about like Nocturne now, but I nothing happened. He ended up getting off. Like, he didn't have to do too much time for that or some of that. I met up with him, but not so Nocturne was also another band that was kind of like tied in to this whole, like, SoCal black metal scene. They called it SCBM. They One time I met them, and Edwin always kind of talked highly of Nocturne, especially when they had their main singer, Alex, which was Count Malice, and he was in their first two recordings, Curse and Nazarene, as well as Embracer Dark Ages. And this is like like 99, 2003, around that time, 2004. They were not necessarily like known as like an NSBM band, like how they are now, how they're pushing it. They were more just like an East LA black metal band. But you would see, like images of like Third Reich images. You would see them like on videos or post pictures they would post, um, of like flags, like swastika flags, and one of their guys had like some Third Reich inspired like tattoos on his arm and sort of that. And Edwin always praised Nocturne, like, especially, Count Malice, their singer. Edwin always said that Count Malice kind of rivaled some of the stuff that he did on stage, like when it comes to like razor blades and the whole mutilation act. Edwin always praised it because Count Malice took a drill, like a power drill, to his head one time on a show in Hollywood, and everyone was like, dude, I've never seen anyone do it like that. Anyways, well, I first met Nocturne, and I became a fan of him too. But I first met Nocturne at a Kettle Cadaver show. Edwin asked him to do some recording for a show, which was my favorite Kettle Cadaver show I ever saw him do. They opened up for Cattle Decapitation, which was kind of a weird mix of groups of people. Like a vegan band mixed with like, Edwin hanging coyotes and animals from the ceiling. So it was kind of what's the word? Fuck, I don't know, oxymoron kind of a thing, I guess you could say. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Was he? Did he do the whole roadkill thing at that
no,
at
he
that
didn't
show?
do that. He didn't do any animals on that show. But that, if you were to ask me what my favorite, because I've been to like maybe 6 or 7 Kettle Cadaver shows, that was my favorite show. That felt like a real Kettle Cadaver show, like the magic of Kettle Cadaver. Like, I really enjoyed the old Kettle Cadaver when there was pumpkins, and it made it look like a horror movie inspired, kind of like the fog and the green lighting and like the glow of the lights and the jack-o'-lanterns and stuff like that, and the candles. That's my kind of favorite Kettle Cadaver style, where you feel like it's Halloween. Like, I like a little bit of the stuff. The extreme stuff is cool, but I, I like more. The band kind of shifted almost later to like a Road Warrior kind of like Mad Max kind of thing. I felt like the image of it was, but I like the Halloween kind of shows they would put on, and that was one of them. And they even brought in some guest performers that came on to play. They brought Rallis from a band called Dead by Day. They're like this monster Hollywood makeup. They wear like all these Hollywood masks, and they look like horror movies, like monsters, like on the and they're actually from Hollywood too. And they can do like magic tricks on stage, and they play. It's not really music I like, but they brought him on, and he did all these magic tricks. Like he shot like flames through his fingers, and he had this candle holder, like like kind of thing, and it had all these candles next to his keyboard, and it was just cool. And he played the keyboards for Pumpkin Man, and he was all dressed up, and it was just like a cool. It was a cool. I remember that, and Edwin was dressed up as the Pumpkin Man, like the costume was like the old hat and the dirty jacket, and he holds the lantern like this, out front of him, and it was just cool. He wore all the props, it was my favorite one. It had that essence and euphoria that went with it. And anyways, Nocturne was there. They filmed. They helped film for the second DVD. They asked them to come down, and they hung out and they party with us. So that was where I met them. That was the first. Oh, wait a minute. No, no, I met them. I met them prior, so I already knew it. But it was the first time. Okay, sorry. So I did meet Nocturne prior. This is the second time, but I'll just say that I didn't know Nocturne when I first met Nocturne. It was actually at a show when they played in Showcase, same place. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. I didn't know they were Mexicans. I thought I thought that they were all white guys, being that they were all like from um, wearing all this Third Reich stuff and flags, and in their music videos would be like Panzer tanks and all this stuff. And I would kind of see them starting to push the NSBM thing, but it wasn't fully on like it is now. And so, but they're all from East LA. They're all Hispanic dudes. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, you don't know it because they wear corpse paints or that, but when they're just, I mean, they're Mexican dudes. And they're like, they have like somewhat accents, like, it was so, man, like they talk like, it was so, like, and so, and some of them have like swastika tattoos and shit. And I remember I had ordered forgot what it was. I ordered something for him, and I remember I was in touch with him also, and they told me, "Hey, we just had some shirts made. We want to get you one for being a fan. You showed up for a shirt." And I'm like, "All right, yeah, well, cool, man." But they didn't tell me what shirt it was that I was ordering, and so it comes in the mail, and it's this like Nocturne crematorium solution. It's this fucking oven with skulls in there, like fucking and shit in there. On the side of the sleeves, it's got like a Wehrmacht, Waffen SS helmet with a skull with like a totem comp on it on each sleeve. And I wear it to school at Temecula High School. It's actually the same high school where Edwin got graduated also from. We went the same one. And I got in trouble with it. I had one of the teachers saw me wear it, and they're like, "Yeah, you can't wear that." And that led to a phone call, and they had to explain this band Nocturne to my parents and stuff like that. So that was one of the one of the ones I told them about it too.
Yeah,
But
that's a rough conversation.
yeah, but they kind of saw where I was going, and I got in trouble. And my parents had an idea of what this Edwin, because I kept it from my parents. They knew I was going to. They knew who Edwin was. They didn't know exactly what he was doing, but they would know on weekends I was going to this Edwin's house and this Kettle Cadaver stuff. They started asking questions like, "What is going on there? What are you guys doing there?" Um, so, but back to it now. I kind of Kettle Cadaver kind of then they released a second DVD, and at that time I was like maybe like 17 years old now, and I kind of got out of the scene. I kind of was over it. I wasn't playing in a band anymore. My friends and my crew that I had with in high school were doing music still. I wasn't in their band, which kind of made me like not outcast. They still let me hang out with them, but I wasn't in their band anymore. Like I wasn't always hanging out with them. They were doing their thing, and their music. They were more into the Children of Bodom style, and I was more. I kind of wanted to get more into playing sports, and I ended up joining the wrestling team, and I shaved my head, and I was also into Resistance, records, magazines, and that, and the skinhead scene. It was kind of something I was interested in, and Resistance Records. It was still kind of there was still a skinhead scene at this time, and I was kind of getting more involved in that, and I ended up joining the wrestling team, and wanted to get bigger and stronger, and kind of just hanging out some more like alpha dudes, and have better looking girlfriends and stuff like that than we had around our area, my friends. So I ended up joining the wrestling team, and I remember Edwin finding out that like I shaved my head, and because he wrote me a letter like, "Where are you? You're not writing me letters anymore." And I kind of told him, well, this is where I'm kind of going in my life now. I joined the wrestling team. I kind of getting away from the whole metal scene, and he was like, dude, that is so cool. He's like, I'm so pumped for you because I knew you shouldn't have, you didn't need to be hanging out like doing that shit. And he's like, he's like, I wanted to join the wrestling team too when I was your age. He's like, yeah, do that, and pursue it, And so he told me, he's like, it's good to hear like someone's actually doing something with their life. So yeah, he was someone like, Ed was always someone that I looked up to and always gave me like kind of the best advice.
Yeah,
Um,
it's cool that he was actually positive about that
yeah,
and
he was
not didn't
super.
give you
Yeah,
any
he's like, oh
pushback.
well, yeah, no, he was cool. But like I said, he had his girlfriend Jay. She kind of had enough of what was going on, and a couple years had gone by now. I think we're at like around 2006 now, 2007, and his girlfriend breaks up with him, Jay. Um, and to me, this was where things really started to go down, and I kind of Ed didn't want to be told what to do. Ed didn't want to get a job, um, and this kind of really led him to, I would say, depression, and he just started doing drugs, which he never did. He was never a guy to drink. He drank. He never smoked cigarettes. He never smoked weed or did anything. But drugs were something he preached us against and told us like, don't do drugs. Um, well, he started doing it, and his drug of choice was methamphetamine, unfortunately, and he was doing it just about an everyday thing. And oh, excuse me, he creates this band later called the Hexed. It was like this punk, kind of this punk rock and roll band. And at this time now, Kettle Cadaver's kind of done, and he's going to do this new thing. And it was just staying up late, doing dope, and playing rock and roll music. That was his thing, and the music's actually pretty cool, but I don't like it because it's so unhealthy, and I'm watching Edwin just turn into a tweaker now, and you could just see it. The music videos are coming in, and they're actually are doing dope in the music videos, and some of them too. Um, he I'm not going there anymore and stuff like that. But then later, the years later, then he meets with it's actually the band of Nocturne, the singer whose name went by Psycho. He was friends with Edwin as well. He was around. He was a cool dude. Um, it turned. I think this is around 2007. Eva O of Christian Death. She finds out about Edwin. Like she sees his DVD and she wants to like meet him, and she has this crush on him and stuff. So Psycho of Nocturne, they introduce each other to him and stuff like that. And she just immediately falls in love with Edwin, and she moves into his place, and they're together, and a little bit later, I think around 2007, 2008, they're going to deport Edwin. The immigration, or ICE or someone sends him a letter in the mail. Hey, your green card is expired, and because Edwin got arrested for a misdemeanor when he was like a teenager, he basically didn't. All it was he didn't tell on his friends. He didn't tell on some friends that snitched. So one of his friends, back when he was in high school, stole like a quad, like an ATV off-road quad, but he didn't snitch. But the cops knew he knew these guys, and Edwin's like, I can't snitch on my friends. So they actually took him to jail for a couple of days for not cooperating, and or false info to a police officer. So that he had a misdemeanor record, and they after 9/11, as far as I know, they made a rule like if you got in trouble and you had a green card, you weren't a citizen, you can get deported. So they chose him. So anyways, Eva decided, hey, why don't I marry you, and this can help you stay here in the country. Otherwise, because Edwin's going to have to get deported back to Norway. So they did. They got married, and it was on 8/8 of 2008, 8/8/8. And so I was invited to their wedding. I went to it. Oh man, what a crazy wedding that was! That was the most gothic, wild wedding. Especially Eva. She's like the queen of the goth scene. Edwin, he was all dressed up in this corpse paint thing. They had this known tattoo artist who's now an actor marry them. Mike Ferguson. He ran in this tattoo area. Now he's this known. he's an actor now. He's in commercials and a lot of movies and such like that. He married a what a wild show, man. It was a violent, crazy night. It was fun. Rick Agnew was there. He was the band Adolescence. Rick Agnew actually used to live at Edwin's house for a little while. He actually has Rick has a death box tattooed on his hand, also that Edwin did for him. Um, but unfortunately, during that time, Edwin is still out of a drug problem, and Eva is just not kind of putting up with it anymore. She can't take anymore. Edwin's not really working, and they're basically just kind of getting by. And poverty is not good. And but she's kind of like I don't know, but she's staying tough. She's gonna try to hang on there. But 2010, they're still together. Edwin wants to do this last kind of like a goodbye thing that he's gone. He's going to do this rest. He wants to do this and the Hext is done too. He's not doing the Hext anymore. Basically the Hext put out like 4 music videos and that was it. But um but Edwin wants to do a last like wrestling match and that's kind of like his goodbye. He's getting older now and he's like this is going to be my last kind of like goodbye to everyone. As far as like seeing me on stage or doing music or anything like that. But this is like my last time you'll see me like entertainment wise. And
Is that when he started to get really jacked?
yeah, so that's that one movie says Edwin versus Devin Sparks, is Edwin Death Saw and sort of that. So yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. This is pretty wild, and this is when we became the closest together as far as our friendship goes. So Edwin starts. There's this. It's called the West Coast Wrestling Company. It's this local wrestling company here in town, and Edwin starts going to practices, and I guess things were going all right back then, And I don't think he's fully put down the dope, but he's actually kind of He's getting around people. He's wrestling. He's kind of looking a little bit more healthier, I guess you could say. So him and Eva is also his wife, Eva O of Christian. She's a huge wrestling fan. Also, her favorite wrestler is Kane, and uh, Edwin decides they want to do like a kind of going away, goodbye, kind of. This is my last time you'll see me on stage or the wrestling room. Um, uh, Farewell wrestling match, and they're looking for an opponent for him. And so they decide, hey, what better yet than their main guy, who's the champion of West Coast Wrestling, is this little prick named Devin Sparks. And so, and they were cool. There was nothing really personal about Edwin and Devin Sparks, really. There really wasn't. But so they're making the promo for it, for this wrestling match. And this guy Devin Sparks, he's at like a fucking Fridays or TGI Fridays, like in a booth or whatever, and he's filming this promo, and he just lays into Edwin making this promo and Eva saying the most personal stuff, calling him a faggot, like going way too personal and making this thing way more. I'm like, oh shit, like. And calling his wife a tranny and it's just it's gotten like way now this is more and so it kind of rubbed Edwin the wrong way. Like, hey, I understand this is a wrestling match and we're making a promo, but dude, you kind of said some stuff on this more than you should have. So now the whole people are thinking like, is this real or not? They posted on YouTube, and it's starting to people are building this advert, but it did build an advertisement. It's kind of people are watching this, and so Edwin wants to pick this guy's opponent, and Edwin reaches out to me, and this is when I'm like 21, 22, and I'm fully just into lifting weights. I'm lifting weights with the Animal Barbell Crew. Let's just say I'm doing supplements that do work, wink, wink, like I'm a good 240 pounds, 250 pounds. I'm not that 16-year-old skinny kid anymore. I'm lifting weights every day and I'm all about it. I'm going to Mr. Olympia show expos and all the ones. I'm all into bodybuilding and working out now. That's what I'm into. And so Edwin calls me, and I hadn't talked to Edwin in quite a couple of years. And he goes, hey, calls me and goes, hey, word on the street is you're a pretty big boy now. And I'm like, oh yeah, who told you that? I'm like, well, I got people around. He goes, I've been capping up on you, and I'm like, oh yeah, man, I've been hitting the weights. He's like, well. What do you think about hooking me up with some supplements you got in there, wink wink? And I'm like, what do you want to do that for? And he's like, I'm doing this promo thing, I'm doing this wrestling. It's my last kind of thing. Um, I'm gonna go out. I want to go out with a bang, and I want to go out as Ed. I want to go out as Death Saw. That's his wrestling name, Death Saw. And he's like, I want to do it. I want to make it look good. And he's like, so can you help me out? I said, all right, I'll help you out, bro. So I come over there with all the supplements and stuff like that. I get him on the supplement stack and wink, wink, and so, and he sees me, he's like, God damn, dude, you've gotten big. And I was like, yeah, dude. And he's like, well, you're definitely not that teenager. I used to see you as here. I go, yeah. So, I asked him, I said, hey, you know what? I've never worked out with you before, like, and I've always wanted to work out here in the mower shack or in the black house. Like, can I do it? He's like, absolutely. And so, um, how it's crazy. So how he works out, it's very unconventional workouts. It's really just like 20-pound dumbbells. He's got a 50-pound dumbbell and a chain that he puts like 10 pounds, like a 10-pound weight on, and he's got like a tricep pull down kind of pulley system thing, and that's it. And we got a keg that we lift, and it's really not. And we do have like a bench, anything like that we put down with two speakers with like a pad we put on, so it's like a makeshift bench thing we can lay down, do chest presses on, and so it's not much, but we but I have never seen the way he works out. So it's kind of like he was very inspired by the Ultimate Warrior, the wrestler, the Ultimate Warrior from back in, like, the old WWF days. He that guy was real jacked and strong, but he wasn't. The way he worked out was like, because he did put out wrestling workout videos like with weights. Edwin watched those. Edwin had those and was very
Yeah,
inspired
it was
by
kind of
that.
like unconventional. I've seen
Yes,
those. I've seen those
yes.
videos. They're super
Yeah,
unconventional.
it's in a gym and he's doing it. So that was his style. Like, I put it
Like
to,
behind
yes,
the
behind it.
head
Yes, yeah, very
tricep
kind of
press.
no,
Yeah,
no more really than 20 pounds, but a lot of reps and just
yeah.
going. And he would do those speeches. He would say that. But I've never seen anyone get a pump the way I've seen Edwin do it. I couldn't believe it. Almost looked cartoonish, like, like in Looney Tunes when like Bugs Bunny or whatever, or like Daffy
Like
Duck,
inflates their
they inflate.
muscle.
Yeah, they stick their thumb in their
Yeah,
mouth and blow on it, and they're shit all fucking jacked, like they can walk up onto the fucking Mr. Olympia stage now, all jacked. That is, he would do a set or two sets of just some kind of like bicep curls, but he would go and do like these upright row. He would hold on to this chain and he would, with like some weight on it, he would do like an upright row style movement with it, and he would go until his face would turn blue and purple, and he would be all just he would just look like regular normal, and then he would be so pumped. I wish I would have taken a video of it on, well, back then I don't think my phone even could record a video on it. It was a flip
was
phone,
he
I think.
lean at that
Yeah,
point?
he was pretty lean. He was pretty lean. He kind of, there were times where he didn't give a fuck. He would drink a lot and he would kind of a belly, but he was usually, let's just say, he didn't have a whole lot of food at his house too. Like, food was
Yeah.
kind of, but he had very good genetics. I don't know if it was his Viking genes and from Norway. His mom is fucking strong, just naturally strong. I've shooken his mom's hand before, and she's got a handshake. Like, she just naturally from Norway strength, I guess. But they're strong. They're just, his genetics are very good. Like, where he can eat, and most of the time his diet was top ramen because he just didn't have the money to afford like protein. His protein supplements, well, besides what I would give him, was like chocolate milk. He would go to the liquor store and he didn't have a car to go to the market. So usually it would be like someone had to bring him food, like bologna and top ramen, and you
That's
know,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. So he would just live off of that, and deli meats. It wasn't like he had, and so and he would take vitamins, like multivitamin, but like, so his protein intake was like 30 grams or maybe 40. That's like the protein intake of a little girl, like a little 8-year-old girl or something like that, so, but when he was serious about it, dude, he could make some gains, and it was a lot of fun working out with him. We would play, he had a little CD player in there, and we would play the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack. And there was this one track that sounded really cool when you were doing push-ups to it. And then we would play Dark Throne, a Blaze of Northern Sky album was something we'd always play together. And I know the Operation Werewolf guys they like to work out to that album too. And we had a Screwdriver where we played a lot of Screwdriver. He was real Edwin song, and I always think of Edwin when I hear that song. Road to Valhalla, that Ian Stewart kind of acoustic song.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
Sticker, that's like his favorite song. I think of when I play that song, I think of Edwin a lot, like, but we would play that a lot. He would put, dude, that song was he would play that song like on like on repeat. He would play that thing like 10 times in a row. Like we'd be lifting or he would tattoo me and it would just be like and he didn't even know how to hit the repeat button. He would just have to like push the, push the, push the back button again and play it. Like it's funny, like and so anyways, so things were good at this time. I'm coming to his house now like three nights a week, dude. Like every other day I'm going up there and I'm bringing him food and Eva
Was this
always
before? Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
I wanted to. Was this before or after his appearance on that Gangland episode?
This was probably after, but the Gangland episode. Okay, so I don't know if I talked about this, dude. That Gangland episode, that was probably like 1997 when that took
Oh
place.
wow.
Yeah, that was a
Okay.
long time ago. And that dude, I mentioned, there was this. I don't know. I'm not sure. I know I talked about this before we started our conversation of our pre-record thing, but I'm not sure
Mm.
if I remember if I had talked about this now that we're recording. But it was that incident took place. So what he's talking about, if you guys want to research this, there's the show Gangland, which is what is that, National Geographic that put that out, or no, it was not.
Or
With
History
the
Channel.
History Channel, that's right. History Channel, Gangland, the show. There is Kettle Cadaver is mentioned on one of the episodes. It's called Hate Nation, and it's basically what happened was like 1995 and 97. Kettle Cadaver goes out to play a show at Spin Records, where I previously told you that I bought their CD at when I was a teenager. Um, and what happened was the owner let him play a show. They thought it was going to be okay. Well, a mosh pit broke out while Kettle Cadaver was playing. They some people were moshing and they ran into a display case, a glass display case, broken, shattered glass. A guy's arm got broken during a mosh pit. An ambulance had to come, and it was just like the manager was like, the owner of the Spin Records was like, get out of here. This show's over. So they all decided, they had all these people and like, hey, let's all go to it might have been the release. It might have been the release of the record of Halloween. Maybe that's what they're celebrating. I could be wrong. It was a long time ago. I wasn't there. But anyways, they'll say, "Hey, let's go out to Buck Road. It was a place that we called Sticks. It's just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, out near Temecula wine country, and it's where we'd have bonfires. And so did I. Be out in the middle of nowhere. We have bonfires and drink beer. Well, there was some fringe of the band also of Kettle Cadaver. They were we called Western, and this is all on online too. You can read about this. It was a big deal, a big court case. I've met most of the guys that were involved in that incident as well. And But Kenosha Everdip is well. What ended up the boys that were involved in this thing get legal representation and stuff like that. So he was involved in it. But Kettle Cover just happened to be there at the party, and everyone at the Hammer Skins were also at the Spin Record show as well. So, but it's on Gangland Hey Nation, but that's pretty much the story of it. I don't know if it's you can find it on YouTube. I mean, you tell me you couldn't find it, but maybe on BitChute it might be on one of the other ones, but it is out there. Gangland Hate Nation. Um,
God, I was just curious because I knew there was some episode where they were mentioned, so I was not because I haven't seen the episodes. So I
yeah,
just wasn't. I know
yeah,
that's like a
yeah.
part of their
But that's
lore.
that's pretty much what the story of it. Yeah, they talked about it. I think there was another dude from that talks about his life, and I'm not sure if the dude was really a real smart guy because he's like openly wanting to talk about. I don't know, but there was another guy on it too that was like a skinny like talking about his life. So and I was like, why would you let them come to your house and talk to you? I was like, is this guy fake? I don't know, but maybe he is, maybe not. But um, so yeah, so back to the workout thing. So yeah, Ed had this crazy genetics. I remember, and he had the sickest pumps, dude. Just turned blue in his face and just would get so pumped, man. I've never seen anybody like this. And I've watched all those guys like Marcus Rule. I've literally watched Branch Warren work out like in person, and Edwin's pumps were nothing. Or I mean, Branch Warren's pumps were nothing compared to what Edwin the pumps you get. Like it just looked amazing. I've never seen it, and so I wish I would have videotaped it. But and he wouldn't even really. Oh, and Edwin would drink. Edwin liked to drink before we would go down. I used to drive him before, like his pre workout was Smirnoff vodka and a 40 ounce of King Cobra beer, and we'd go to he would have me drive me down to the liquor store, and I pick him up some alcohol, and but I would drink pre-workout. I would drink like fucking Explode or Mesomorph or whatever, and I would be like, yo, why don't you drink this? And he was like, I can't. He's like, no, I can't drink that. That's gonna mess up my stomach. I'm like, bro, you drink alcohol and you do drugs, bro. Like, what do you mean you're afraid of pre-workout? Like, dude, this is an over-the-counter supplement. Like, he's like, nah, no, 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 I can't. That's crazy. I'm like, dude, it was funny, like how
See, I've heard of people drinking after they work out, but never
yeah,
before they,
no, he
especially
was
for
all
that
about it.
heavy, brutal weightlifting he was doing. I've never
Yeah,
heard of someone
yeah, it
drinking a
was.
40 before that.
I never did it too, but I did it a few times with him, and it was actually pretty fun doing with him because everyone was usually a really fun guy to drink with, and he would pump you up, and we would shout things out, and so it was cool. It felt like we're in a dungeon. I think I've sent you some
I love
pictures,
that
but
old school type of like brutal training style
yeah,
too.
yeah, and it was also the room was dark, and
Yeah.
he would set the scene. It was cool. Like we played music, and it felt like we were working out in a dungeon. And equipment we had, it was really cool. Like it was those were some of my best memories with him. Uh, and so he's getting Ed's getting jacked, and he's getting ready for this wrestling thing, but he was taking this promo very personal, and I would try to talk to him like, bro, just call the guy and talk to him because you guys are do the show in like 2 weeks. You guys haven't even ran the ropes yet together. Like you should be down there working with this guy. And he was like, I want to fucking beat his ass. I'm like, well, dude, like you
Was he
guys,
just gonna go in there and shoot on him? Like he was just gonna literally go fight him,
I
not do
don't
a
know. Like
wrestling?
he would go back and forth. He would go back and forth, and so I started hanging out and like we're just going on for like a month now, and he's so fucking stressed out. He was so stressed out, and he would get stressed out from me coming over because he would get mad. I remember one time, like just minutes before I showed up, he tried to throw a cinder block at his mom's car. He tried to throw a cinder block at his mom. Like he was so stressed out about like this thing, and and then like then he would have to work out. He couldn't free because when he would get upset, fuck, dude, he would break shit. He would fucking. I remember one time, dude, like he stomped so hard, like his foot through the ground. He was in his trailer, his mobile home. He stomped so hard, his foot went through the fucking trailer floor. Like he just gets mad, dude, and he breaks shit. He fucking punches TVs and breaks fucking DVD players. Like he just rages, man, and like you don't really want to be there when he does it. But I'm usually a person that I can kind of bring him down. I'm like, hey, bro, knock it off, And I was bigger too. Like he was kind of like I was kind of one of the few people that he's told me like, dude, you actually like really fucking calm me down. Like you actually bring me down back to earth. Like, and so Eva O noticed that too, and his mom did that. Like I was there, like being a positive thing on him, because everyone else does. Pretty much we're all just tweakers coming over. It was turning into a tweaker compound because when that band Hex was around, it was bad. It was very, very bad. People, it was just a tweaker compound, and so at least Ed was kind of like while he was with me, he was smiling again. He was getting bigger. He's getting his size back again. It was almost like I got to have Edwin with me, like the actual Edwin that I remember for like a month. And a lot of people, it was. I try to remember that side of him now. And anyways, so I'm like, Edwin, you go call the guy and just tell him you want to practice with him in the thing because this thing's coming up. You're either gonna do this wrestling match or not, dude. Like I can like you keep stressing out and you keep screaming about this thing, but you just call the guy. Call the guy and just do some training with him. Like this is I don't know I can't even help you anymore. Just go down there and talk to him. And so, anyways, he never did, and they just agreed that they were just going to freestyle it at the event. They were just going to do it. Well, anyways, so we're
That does
working.
not sound like a good idea.
Yeah, well, and so anyway, so it was fun, and Edwin, like it was cool. The workouts were fun. It was cool. Me and him kind of did this cool photo shoot together, like this. I always will keep those pictures. It was cool, and the day of the match, I think it was only supposed to be just a promo match. They weren't even supposed to wrestle yet. They were just supposed to like do a thing on the microphone, and be like, "Oh, I challenge you," or whatever they're gonna do. Anyways, Edwin gets fucking just drunk. Gets hammered drunk that before it steals basically Eva O's car and drives down the road, which wasn't that far. It was only like 10 or 15 minutes down the road where it was held at some little shitty sporting recreation center, and tries to fucking run over the guy, run Devin Sparks with Eva's car. Literally tries to fuck. The guy actually had to jump out of the way in the parking lot. I show up like 20 minutes later, and
Was
it's
he in full like corpse paint, or was he just normal?
I didn't see it. I don't know what he might have been. He might have been. I don't know. I know he was drunk. He
Yeah,
might have.
like full
I
gimmick.
don't know. Maybe he was looking like a road warrior, fucking death saw. He might. I don't know. It sounded like he just didn't give a fucking just. I know he was yelling at Evo that day and just freaked out and took her car and he wrecked her car when he brought it back. He broke a belt or something like that. I remember she told me about it. And yeah, it was just bad news, and I'm like, fuck, dude. So now he's basically kicked out of the fucking thing now. He can't do it. He's not welcome back at the wrestling thing for trying to run him over. And so Edwin called me a few days later. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like we worked toward this. Like, I'm kind of upset about this. Like, and he's like, no, no, we'll work it out. We'll get it back. But it never did. But this is what sucks, and this has really caused a downfall. Um, he told me, and this is when I remember me and him were sitting down like in the kitchen. We just got done working out, and me and Edward made these like protein shakes, and we're literally just sitting cross-legged on the kitchen, and we are just having a conversation. I don't know why we are sitting in the kitchen, but he started opening up to me and telling me that, Kettle Cadaver's done, the hex is done. He's like, I'm gonna try to kick my drug problems. And he's like, I have a lot of bad thoughts in my head, for my dad and everything. He's like, I have this idea that I'm going to basically lock myself in a room for 30 days, and I think that I'm going to be able to fight the demons on my own. I think that I'm going to be able to fight my inner demons, like on my own. I'm gonna face them. And so I go, oh, okay. Well, I didn't know at the time that isolation. I was only like 22, 23 at the time. I didn't know that that is like what you don't want to do and isolate yourself, like literally isolate yourself. I didn't. And I was like, okay, if you think that's, I was like, oh, if you think you're gonna do that, then okay. Well, he ended up did doing that, and it made him a lot worse. And they had someone feed him down there and shit like that. And I was just fucking. Anyways, I remember.
It was basically just like it was a dungeon with no
Yeah,
windows,
basically
no
just a
light.
room. Yeah, yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
see him in there when it was in, but it did happen. And I remember I had brought some like equipment over there because we were gonna record him hitting like pads, like boxing. I had like boxing gloves and some pads and boxing mitts, and I had a heavy bag over there. And I remember I had like some clothes that I left because I got so sweaty doing this photo shoot, and I changed my clothes, but I forgot to take my clothes. And Evo called me and told me, "Hey, all your stuff is here, and there's some stuff Edwin wants you to have." And so I showed up there, and she told me like, Edwin is away. He's doing this thing now. He's down in the basement basically. And I'm like, she's like, you can't see him, but just letting you know what's going on. And she goes, and here's your clothes. And I remember she washed my clothes, and I remember like I smelled them. They smelled all like nice, like like flower smells. It was just funny, like Eva O like did my laundry, like it smelled all nice, like she's like the queen of goth, like basically
That's
like
funny.
she looks like a vampire. But I remember this, and I remember she gave me a hug too, which was wow, like I remember, and she told me how much she appreciated me like actually caring. Like she's like, you're one of his few friends that actually cares about his health and is in the she's like, you're the one of the only people that come here that I really want to be here. I want him to spend more time with you. And just because I'm worried about him. And she told me, she's like, I don't know how much longer I can stay here doing this. She's like, I have a daughter, and I don't know how much longer I can keep up with this. She's like, they're about to turn off our electricity, our water's about to be shut off, and it's just she's like, it's as bad. And so I said, all right. And so he gets out and he calls me, and he maybe a few months later, and he kind of tells me, that it made him worse, and I came over and visited him, and he told me that it made him worse, and now he's afraid of people, and now he wears a mask now, which you can kind of see it in the trailer documentary. He wears that white mask, like, and um, which actually is Eva O. That's like his mask. It's fucking bad. Evo was still around, but at this time, but he told me he's afraid of people. He's afraid to go outside, and because being in isolation, he said it didn't work, and it made him worse, spending all that time in isolation. And so um, he didn't look good. He looked, he looked super skinny, and I kind of backed away from him a little bit, and I felt like Evo left. What happened was he talks about this in the documentary also. The neighbors uh, try to molest. I think the neighbors raped Evo's daughter, and I think she was only like 15 years old or so, 14 or 15 years old. And Edwin went over there with like a Count Grishnak bat and just destroyed their apartment. And Edwin got arrested for that. And Eva just had enough. Eva was just like, I can't be here anymore, and she bounced back to Las Vegas. Um, and that's when, the downfall really happened, and when Ed really, no one really went to Edwin's house anymore after that. Like, it used to be a fun place and party place to go, but now it was not. Now it was scary. Like you have someone like with severe mental health problems, and now he's dressing up in Eva's clothes and thinking that he is Eva, dancing. And then he made those wooden
Yeah, the
the
figures of
stick
them.
figures of Edwin and
Yeah.
his daughter, and I was like, and so Edwin made a Facebook, and he figured out how to do it, and he was posting, or I would see it, and I would see him posting all. So this is before the documentary was made too, and anyways, then the documentary kind of came out in 2016, and so someone I hadn't seen it, and I kind of was doing my own thing, not really. I'm like, but I had a feeling. I'm like, it's just a matter of time before Edwin just pulls the plug on himself. Anyways, but I'm like, I'm gonna do one more chance, but I hadn't seen the documentary yet. It just came out, but I heard he was really bad of all the mental health stuff, and it was stuff that I didn't want people to see. I didn't want the world to see him as that, because
Yeah, portrayed him like a really bad light.
Edwin was my champion. Edwin was the person I looked up to. There was a lot of things, that I did, and I became, and I got into law enforcement later. I became a correctional officer, like, which I never thought I was going to do, and he helped me with that process. And when there was times I needed to put my hands on people and scare people inside that module, which was a scary place, like I would say things that Edwin said, who had said, or do things that he did that used to scare people, and it would work. And I'm like, fuck, I would just turn into him sometimes, and I thank him for that, because he had someone like an image I could kind of be like him, and um, I looked up to him. I looked up to him like, kids looked up to like Brett Favre or Tom Brady. They're growing up, like he was my champion, or I looked up to him like he was Glenn Danzig to me, and the way he looked up to Glenn Danzig, and like, so if that makes sense. But I didn't want the world to look at him like he was a J-cat and a guy with mental health issues and wearing women's clothes. It bothered me, and so I could carry. At this time I could carry a weapon, a gun, legally concealed, and so I'm like, I'm gonna make one. I heard that DVD was bad. I'm gonna go. I said I'm just gonna show up at Edwin's house, and I already know there's probably a bunch of tweakers there. There's gonna be a tweaker compound, but I'm gonna go there, and he's gonna listen to me, and I'm gonna look at him in his face and tell him, "You're wrong. This should never have been released." And I'm gonna fucking give it to him. I'm gonna let him have it. And so but I said to myself, like, I might have to fight a bunch of fucking tweakers. I might have to blast my way out. So this is why I'm bringing a gun in. And so I very well knew. And so I showed up. I had a Glock with me. I walked inside the house. There was like 6 or 7 tweakers there. And I said, "Hey, dude." He's like, "Whoa, hey, what are you?" He's like, "Whoa, what's up, man?" I'm like, "Hey, man, I need to talk to you." And I said, he's like, "All right." And so I started letting him have it in front of everyone. And he's like, and so people are like, "Hey, leave Edwin alone." Like, people are like, "I'm like, hey, fuck you, bro." Like, I was like, Ed was like, "Yeah, no, no, I need to hear this. He's allowed to talk to me like this. Like, you guys leave. I need to talk to him." And I'm like, "Bro, like, why did you release this? Like, why, like, people actually still care about you, dude, as a human. Why?" He's like talking to me like he thought it was cool. I'm like, it's not fucking cool, dude. It's not. Okay. I'm letting you know right now, like, the stuff that we talked about as a teenager, you would never, like, this is not you. Like, bro, come on. Why would you release that to the world? And yeah, I let him know, and I just started letting him have it. I started calling him names, and someone else came in, and I'm like, and I told him like, hey, bro, I'm ready to throw down with all everyone here. So if you want to do it, let's go. And um, he cooled down. He's like, no, you're right. He told me, he's like, you're right, you're right. And but unfortunately, it didn't like I took him in my car. We went and we got food together. We went down the road and got some food, and I talked to him. But and then I did go to one of the premieres in San Diego. I actually did show up there and watched it. I didn't like it, but when I got there, he was there also. That's the last picture we have together. Me and him, we took a picture together. And and his eyes lit up, and he was like, "Oh," Edwin's like, "Dude," he's like, "The director's here." He's like, "If you're gonna really beat this guy up, I need to tell him if you're really gonna do this night, because I need to give him a head start, because I don't want you to do it. But if you are, I need to tell him to start running, like." And I'm like, it's fine, whatever, just whatever, dude. I'm like, dude, just do me a favor, bro. Just stop doing music. Stop doing music and get a fucking job. All right. Like just stop doing music. Stop your all creative bullshit. Just get a regular job, and all I care about doing from you, I just want you to be healthy. I just want you to be a healthy human being, bro. I don't expect you to do all this other bullshit. I'm like, I care about you as a friend, dude, and just be a regular fucking man, okay? Can you just do that for me? That's all I'm asking for you. And he shook my hand. He goes, "All right, okay." But yeah, unfortunately, that was the last time I saw him. It was about 2016. And then me and in 2017, this was actually June 18th. June 18th, me and one of my friends, and this guy actually used to live at Edwin's house. I went over to his house, and he tattooed me, and we were talking about Edwin, and talking about how he's doing and stuff like that. And we even played the Kettle Cadaver Pumpkin Halloween album too. We played that on there, and I got tattooed, and uh, he called me the next day, and my friend did, who tattooed me. I went home that night, and he's like, "Hey, dude, just so you know, Edwin died yesterday," and we got there, and I'm like, "Fuck," So yeah, that was a wild, but he had a big influence on all of us. There was I was at a show. There's this local brewery around here in town called the Marietta, and I ran into Tony. Tony, he played in this band called Will-O-Wisp, and he was also one of the bands that was really connected with Kettle Cadaver, and that was in the '90s. Was a known guy in Hollywood. I saw he's now playing in this band called Post Mortem Superstar, and but he's been in a bunch of bands. He's played in this band called Astrovamps, this kind of goth rock vampire shit, um, and I talked to him about the old days, and kind of, so that was kind of cool. But there's a lot of things on Edwin, like, they kind of lately they put out and such like that. But I know that we talked about that guy Wyatt that did a thing on him. I know mine was a very long kind of story, and anything like that. But I try to remember. I try to forget about the hex and forward. I try to forget about those times. I try to remember Edwin, more when I was a teenager, and looking up to him because he was cool. Like he had a really cool. He pushed it. He pushed it hard, and there was no one else like him that could push it. It was cool. He came from my town, and I've seen a lot of bands, no matter what genre. But I've never seen anyone do kind of the kind of stuff that he pushed. And it was almost like his house kind of became his property, because he never really left it, and it was almost like it was Never Neverland. Like that was like, they call it Kettleville also. It was kind of like where all the projects went, and that like kind of like the property like kind of became him in a way. Like he kind of secluded himself there too. But it was, rest in peace to everyone, man. I miss him. I wish but at least I did try. So I did go to Edwin's funeral. This one thing I did go. Edwin's funeral was actually on Halloween. Edwin died on June 19th of 2017, but his funeral was on October 31st, 2017, and we had a memorial for him there at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. It's a famous cemetery in
Yeah, I've
Hollywood.
been there. It's
Yeah,
like a really
okay.
famous
Yeah,
cemetery.
a
Yeah.
lot of actors and musicians are
Is he
there.
buried there?
So Edwin was cremated, and he's on a wall. he on the side, kind of not too far from where the entrance where you drive in is to the right. Um, it's on a corner side, but it's hard for me to describe it over in just in words. But his
Yeah, it's
name is
like one of
on
those
there.
walls where all
Yeah,
the yeah, I know what
yeah,
you're
he's got
talking
a,
about. Yeah.
he has a one of his logos. I don't know. I've seen it so many times, and he's describing me what this logo is. He has it tattooed on him. It's this marking on I don't. It looks like an H. I don't know the symbol. It's like a rune. It looks like a rune like symbol, but I don't know. He's explained to me what it is two times, but I don't understand what he's talking about when he tells me some kind of magic symbol. But it's on there. You'll know it's him. Um, it says his name. They buried him. And they placed the two DVDs inside with him. I was there. It was interesting because I was working at the jail and I had to work that day. Um, and there's a rule like if you have five guys already off that day, you can't take a day off. So I didn't know when his more morally it was. They talked about it, but once I found out that it was going to be on Halloween, it was like I only had like a few days notice that I could tell him. I had to go talk to a sergeant and lieutenant and get approval by my supervisors to let me go because there are already 5 days, and you have to explain why you need this day off, why it's like
Yeah, like
emergency. And
who
so I
this
had to
guy
tell them,
is.
well, I'm going to a funeral. They're like, you're going to a funeral on Halloween? I'm like, yeah. They're like, what makes it? I'm like, well, it's in Hollywood, and this guy was kind of a known. He's already passed away a few months. He's been dead for about 4 months already, but he was kind of this known rock musician, and I grew up kind of with him. And they're like, and I'm like, I'm not gonna. And I was trying not to. They're like, what's the name of the band? I'm like, I was thinking about like making up a name or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
Kettle Cadaver. His name's Edwin, and like, oh, dude, and they actually did look him up, and they gave me the day off though. They were cool. They let me go. They let me go, and I got to go. So that, but they looked at me weird, like they did their homework. They were like, what the fuck,
Yeah,
like
what
what
is
is he
this guy
doing?
into? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was actually wild, and then my life really changed. Also, I noticed symptoms. Um, I remember that morning when I left. It was me and my girlfriend. We drove up there. I started feeling weird. I noticed something was wrong with me, and I remember driving up there when I got up to like Mission Viejo, Orange County area. My stomach started feeling weird, and I just felt tired, and I couldn't really lift weights anymore, and as like I used to, like my drive, something was off. I'm like, there's something wrong,
Yeah.
man. And then I found out like a couple weeks later or so that I had contracted hepatitis A. It was I almost died like 2 weeks later and so like that. So it was
Was
kind
that
of a
from the
what.
prison?
Yeah, I caught that in the jail. Yeah, we had a really bad outbreak in it, and so we had it in San Diego in 2017, and they were bleaching the streets. The cops were, and we had a bunch of homeless people obviously in our jail, and I was eating food at the jail, and made by inmates, so, but it's just yeah, I almost died. I lost my liver almost exploded. I maxed out the machine, and then it pushed. My liver was so big, like a balloon, it punched into my lungs, and my lungs
Shit.
collapsed. And so, yeah, my whole skin was yellow, my eyes were yellow, dude. It was really bad. So I mean, it was A, so it's not in my system. Where like B and C, they stay in your system for a long time. So or permanent. So at least I had that, but it still has like affected me and sort of that. And I do not work at the jail anymore, so that which is good. I run my own business. So good on that. But it was just good times or bad times. So doing that, but life is too short to work in a jail. So
Cool, man. Well, I think this is the most extensive conversation out there about Edwin and kind of his life and his legacy, really. So, thank you so much for sharing this. It's a really fascinating story, and I think it's a shame that it's kind of been there's not much about him out there,
yeah,
which is kind of unfortunate.
yeah, that's also part of it because Edwin didn't really know how to use the internet, and the really I got to give credit to the drummer, which I think I did. He was the only one that, and he's very good at. Devin is very well good at computers. Devin's a good guy. He saved me from getting beat up one time. I owe that guy some credit. I never thanked him for that. If I ever see him again, I will. But we had some pretty solid dudes, dude, that were upset at me one time, but he took care of it for me or helped me. But he kind of was the glue that really kept it around, and he was the one making the internet so that. But that was also his best friend, Edwin. And I don't think I think he likes to just remember the good times and so that. But on it, but there's not, Edwin was my friend, and and so, but he also, Edwin, for a long time was like the mystery man. Like you didn't know, if, even when I knew him, you didn't really know what he was doing. You didn't really see pictures of him. You just knew he was at his house up there, but you didn't really know like what was going on. There's not a whole lot. So you are right on that sense. There's not a whole lot of knowledge on him, and the people that do write about him are just like they just know him for like a day, or they see the DVD or documentary and they make a video of it. Like Wyatt, the guy, he's got a big following, like almost 1 million views on his video, but I don't know, it's like he's never met the guy before. So
Right. Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a really interesting listen for a lot of people, and there's a lot of unknown kind of there's a lot of mystery to this band. I would say that like even if they don't have like a Wikipedia page, really the only things that people
yeah,
know about them are from those DVDs and
yeah,
from that 2016 documentary. So I think
right.
this kind of gives an insight on to him, that
There,
whole scene that was up in Temecula, that what you call, was it Kettle Land, his whole like
Kettleville, yeah, they
compound.
call it Kettleville.
Kettleville, yeah,
Yeah,
that whole compound that
they
he had up there, and that's really
they
interesting to
had
me because it sounded like he kind of had like his own, he built his own world
It's what
essentially,
exactly what it was. There was, like I said, there was opportunities that he could have maybe made more money and gotten the band more advertisement and more people. But his reputation, he didn't want his reputation to be sell out or be mainstream music. They even made a sticker or a shirt that said, it was like a gauntlet of spikes with his fist that said, "The fist in the face of mainstream, a fist in the face of mainstream music." He really lived by that. Like he would eat top ramen and bologna sandwiches before he would touch a bag of money that would sell his reputation out, as well as Kettle Cadaver. And there was a show that I was unfortunate that I didn't get to see that happened. Kettle Cadaver was going to open up for Danzig on a Halloween show in 2003. It was supposed to be at the Orange Pavilion, which is where they had the Ozfest at. It's in San Bernardino. Um, Unfortunately, we had a bunch of wildfires go on at that time. Every year we get these fires, these crazy, well, forest fires in California, but they were pretty bad at this time, and it affected the smoke and the pollution. And um, they said it was due to the fires. They had to cancel the show, but I really feel it was because Danzig wasn't making enough money. Probably due because people weren't buying the tickets. But I think the show sort of was still going to go on. But Danzig and money, he's all about the dollar. So if he's not going to
yeah.
make enough money, he won't play. He didn't play for Ozzy's memorial show. Like that was the only band that, because I guess they weren't, all the other bands were not accepting money. They were like, we're just going to do this for Ozzy. We owe it to him. But Danzig was the only one that says, well, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not playing. So
Yeah,
crazy,
that
right?
tracks.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah, yeah,
tracks.
yeah. But unfortunately, that was the one show I thought maybe they would have gotten some pretty good publicity open up for Danzig but it didn't happen. I thought that, oh, this might be it. Like you might see Kettle Cadaver climb up the ladder a little bit, but he was happy just getting by as long as I could keep the electricity on and make these little things, these creations in his house. He was, that's all he wanted. That was it. There wasn't much, So, but I hope Edwin, is in a better place. He's not suffering anymore, mentally or physically. And rest in peace to Edwin.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your story. I'm sure people are going to really appreciate this.
Cheers, man. Thanks for having me.
Rocket Man,
Good.